Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer. It's a 40k podcast where we talk about 40k things. Today, 40k thing that we're going to talk about is Dark Angels. But guess what? We can't actually tell you about them because it's a secret. So this episode is now over. Thanks for coming, Gerald. It was a pleasure. He waves goodbye to us. We also got Nick.
Hello, all you Grimdark lovers out there. Sorry I can't do the Freemason secret handshake with you guys. So I got to leave this episode, but I'll catch you on the next one, all right?
Yep. But that is how you get access to this Dark Angel special. You have to know the proper handshakes, know the keywords, the code word at the door. I think too there is some type of blood sacrifice that's required, but I can't fully confirm. But yeah, today we're talking Dark Angels. It's going to be a wild episode. This is kind of the part 3 of the series we've been going on. We did Lionel Johnson. There's 2 fun parts about him, and now we're jumping into Dark Angels. We're staring down the barrel of like 30 pages of notes here. It's going to be wild. We're going to learn all types of things about the Dark Angels in the coming 3 hours. But before we get to it, we'll just do some quick housekeeping. Redbubble, if you want to buy some merchandise in this Christmas season, you can get yourself a gift and also support the show. So it's kind of like a win-win. Buy yourself a Christmas gift, and I get a little cut of it. It's a win-win. It's easy. There's links in the description below.
Yeah, feel free to treat yourself because 'tis the season. And hey, there's someone out there that likes 40k stuff. And speaking of treating yourself, how about you treat us to join the Patreon? For $2.50, you get access to the ad-free version on for the podcast, and then for $5, you get access to the ad-free version live stream, where you get to see our lovely faces. Ooh. And if you lovely listeners missed out on my face reveal for the previous episode, oh well.
Sucks to suck. Yeah, and that there is no more video of that one. That was you had to be there to see it, and now it's gone, lost to the annals. But the podcast version is coming out at some point. So,
absolutely. So, but Mark, we could probably make some kind of Patreon goal if we get so many people, or if we make a certain dollar amount. Maybe you will get to see my face more permanently.
Last time I tried to do some type of pay for human flesh, I got accused of, well, let's just say there's some jail time involved, and that's all I can speak of. So I'm not going to sell your body, Gerald, but hey, good to know you're into that kind of idea. It's another Dark Angel secret. I'll tell you how to do it at the end of the episode.
Hey, every time I want to try and talk to Eric, I just have to whisper into your belly button.
It's like a little microphone. Yeah, I like that.
But yeah, definitely check out that Patreon. It gives you a lot of bonus stuff, like access to the live chat room in the show. We read your comments, we throw them up on the screen during the show, and then at the end of the episode, we do a call-in guest. So if you want to get your voice out there on the podcast, we get to ask some awesome questions to the audience, and I always love hearing from you guys. All your guys' points of view are super interesting, so I love that section of the show.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's jump into the content. The Dark Angels 30k Legion era. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the Dark Angels specifically during their origins, the Great Crusade, and the Horus Heresy. There's not even really any on the scouring, like when they break down into different chapters and stuff, because eventually I'll do a second founding chapter, so we'll get there. But yeah, that's kind of what we're focusing on today. I decided when writing this episode to ignore a lot of the history of those events, because we just did the 2 Lionel Johnson episodes, and the history just bleeds exactly with the Primarch, like where the Primarch goes, his Legion follows. So when I was originally writing the notes for this, I felt like I was just repeating the exact same stuff. So instead, on this episode, we're going to be talking a lot about what actually makes the Dark Angel special. Like, yeah, all the cool organizational units. What the fuck is the hexagrammaton that we've all been talking about? We're focused on their tactics and their cultures and more of that, opposed to like just rehashing the history. So if you want to learn about their history, definitely go listen to the 2 previous Lionel Johnson episodes. You guys were on one of them, right? No? Sucks to suck, I guess. See you on the next Primarch
sorry,
episode.
We're just not that special, but I'm sure we'll be able to catch on one here soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that I think means you'll be on the next one first. So,
Oh, of
Emperor's
course.
Children. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, it'll be good. So let's get into this episode. I did write a little quick like origins, Great Crusade, and Horus Heresy bit, but it's quick. So like I said, just go listen to Lionel Johnson's episodes, and you'll hear all about kind of this in greater detail. So let's start with the origins. The origins of the Dark Angels, the first legion of the Adeptus Astartes, are veiled in shadows, a tapestry woven with secrecy, valor, and tragedy. Long before the rise of the Imperium, the Dark Angels were forged in the fire of an ancient and cataclysmic conflict on their homeworld of Caliban. The planet, a forbidding world of untamed wilderness and towering spires, gave birth to the fierce warriors who thrived amidst the chaos. When the Emperor Mankind's first encountered Caliban during the Great Crusade, he found a culture of knights deeply rooted in martial prowess and a harsh code of honor. These men, led by the enigmatic Lionel Johnson, proved to be unmatched in battle, their strength and resolve a perfect fit for the Emperor's vision of a united human empire. The Emperor's sons were revealed to him. The Dark Angels' bond with their Primarch was forged through trial and bloodshed, creating a foundation of which would become a legion of legendary might. Yet the Dark Angels' origins were marred by a secret, one that would shape their destiny in ways few could imagine. While the Emperor granted them great honor and power, the legacy of Caliban was not as pure as it seemed. Beneath the surface of the seemingly perfect society lay a hidden betrayal, a schism within their ranks that would come to define the Legion's future. As the Dark Angels ascended to prominence among the Legiones Astartes, their greatest strength became their most dangerous flaw, a deep and pervasive need for secrecy and the cryptic practices of their order. This dark heritage, one born of internal conflict, rebellion, and the shadows of the homeworld, would forever haunt the Dark Angels. From the moment they were first unleashed upon the galaxy, they would carry the burden of their past, a burden of honor, guilt, and mysterious truth that only the Lion and his few closest companions could fully understand. Yeah, I just love Caliban, the knightly aspect of, and like how it translates onto the minis, just sci-fi knights in space with giant great swords and pistols. So cool, wearing robes.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing. I've always been a Blood Angels fan, but I was telling you, Mark, before this episode, like I think the Dark Angels are slowly starting to win me over, especially with some of their new line of minis, how they have the robes with the cloaks over the top of them now. Awesome.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I was just telling Nick this too. Like I'm way too stubborn in which chapters and legions I like, but man, both their 40K and their Horus Heresy model line is just perfect.
Yeah,
It's
top
fantastic.
notch. Yeah, after doing the Lionel Johnson episode, like he kind of got bumped to my favorite Primarch. You know, he was probably up there anyways, but like, ooh, he's so cool, and their Legion's awesome. Let's find out what they did in the Great Crusade.
Yeah, I guess that'd be my turn. So, during the Great Crusade, the Dark Angels emerged as one of the Imperium's most formidable and revered legions. Their reputation for unyielding discipline, strategic genius, and ruthless efficiency preceded them in every battlefield. Led by their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, they became the Emperor's most trusted warriors, serving as his vanguard in the Crusade to unite humanity under one banner. The Dark Angels were often tasked with the most difficult and dangerous campaigns, their presence signaling that no foe, be it Xenos, heretic, or traitor, was beyond the reach of the Imperium's wrath. Their tactics were precise, their warriors unflinching in the face of unimaginable odds. Yet beneath their exterior of perfect discipline and glory lay a complex, secretive nature, for the Dark Angels never truly allowed themselves to be understood by the worlds they liberated or the allies they fought alongside. Their internal structures were enshrouded in mystery, with many of their highest leaders operating behind veils of secrecy even among their own ranks, creating an aura of both respect and fear wherever they went. Despite their heroics, the Dark Angels' role in the Great Crusade was also defined by an ever-present shadow, one that neither they nor their allies could fully see. The Legion's strict code of honor and their habit of leaving no stone unturned in their pursuit of victory often led to suspicion and isolation. The Dark Angel soldiers would arrive at the front lines with little fanfare, their commanders unknown to their allies, leaving those they fought beside to guess the true identity of the warlords among them. This cryptic behavior, while a symbol of their dedication to their cause, also created an unsettling atmosphere around them. Those who served alongside the Dark Angels learned quickly that their presence was both a blessing and a portent of darker things to come. For the Legion was not only engaged in the fight to bring the Imperium to victory, but also in an ever deepening struggle with their own past, a past that would soon erupt with devastating consequences when the Horus Heresy tore the galaxy asunder. So these guys are pretty much these guys are pretty much the, like, you want the job done, you send these guys in, they're not going to complain about it, they're just going to do it. I heard a lore tuber one time, I think said, the Space Wolves were always called the Emperor's Executioners if you want to make a big show about it, but if you want someone exterminated, you send in the Lion and the Dark Angels.
Yeah, they'll beat you with tactical precision, strategic intelligence, and not only that, they have all the best goodies from the Dark Age of technology. They got all that good war gear. Yeah, the Lion's an interesting character. Just him growing up in isolation alone, fighting beasts in the wild. He really keeps everything close to his chest because he didn't talk to anyone for his whole kind of upbringing. Only later he was found, and then he was introduced into these knightly orders that no common person can get into. There's secrets, there's levels and tiers. Like first you're a squire and you have only access to so much information, and then you get upgraded, and then you get a little more access and a little more power, and it kind of builds, and then that just bleeds directly into the Dark Angels. Just gets passed right down to them.
I mean,
it's kind of aloofness.
Cool. Yeah, and especially with the Dark Angels, being the first Legion, they were pretty much the benchmark for the rest of the Astartes going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and as we, I think as we go on, I wasn't there for the Lion episodes, but I'm pretty sure some, how do I put this? Some connections can be made between him and other Primarchs because the way they're almost kind of foils to each other in some way, shape, or form. But we could talk about that later.
Yeah. I found the connection that was more important was not to some of his brothers and stuff, where he found some more relatable than others or whatever. I found the connection, the mimicry of him and the Emperor was so much more cool, where it's just, they're basically a one-to-one comparison where they both are these kind of stoic leaders. You don't fully know what they're planning or thinking. They're a step above everyone else, so you don't have to really know what they're thinking. And then, they just want to unify humanity. And then ultimately, half their soldiers betray them. They get mortally wounded and interred in some type of location. Like, it's just this almost exact mimicry of the Emperor.
It's super cool. Yeah, there's so much to them. I mean, it's awesome. But let's talk a little bit about their what they got up to during the Horus Heresy. So as the Horus Heresy unfolded, the Dark Angels found themselves caught in a storm of treachery and betrayal, torn between loyalty to the Emperor and a secret burden that threatened to unravel them from within. The Legion, once a proud and steadfast vanguard of the Imperium, was deeply affected by the rebellion of their Primarch's former brother Horus, though they were not immune to their own internal conflict. As the galaxy descended into civil war, the Dark Angels were forced to confront not only the traitor legions, but also the dark secrets that had been buried within their ranks for millennia. An unresolved betrayal that no other legion could comprehend, Lionel Johnson, steadfast as ever, led his sons with determination, but the ever-present shadow of the fallen, those Dark Angels who had turned traitor before the Horsey turn began, loomed over the entire Legion. It became clear that the Legion's internal wounds would be just as deadly as the external threats they faced, and their battle was now not only with the Imperium, but also for redemption. While the traitor legions waged open war, the Dark Angels undertook a secretive, unspoken war of their own. The Lion's grim task was to hunt down the fallen, those few of his sons who had turned against him during the early days of the Great Crusade, hiding their treachery beneath layers of deception. These renegades had become scattered throughout the galaxy, hiding amongst the ranks of the enemy or within the shadows of the Imperium itself. As the heresy unfolded, the Dark Angels' pursuit of the fallen became as relentless as their war against the traitors. A desperate and often clandestine effort. The loyalist archangels, while fighting valiantly in battle alongside the Emperor's own other legions, had to balance their loyalty to the Emperor with the ever-darkening mission of capturing or destroying their lost brothers, knowing that the revelation of their past would shake the very foundation of the Imperium. This grim reality painted the Legion with a tragic and mysterious aura, or in the pursuit of victory, they saw not to just the defeat of the traitors, but the final reckoning of a dark secret that could yet ruin them all.
Yeah. And just to kind of clarify a little bit, like Caliban wasn't fully realized and their traitor brother wasn't fully realized till after the Horus Heresy was kind of wrapped up, after the Siege of Terra when they went back. But man, there was Luther when he almost allowed the assassination plot to happen. And then he had to send his once mentor and best friend back. And there's also one other guy, Zavriel, that he had to kind of hunt. And then more kind of to Lionel Johnson, more so than the Dark Angels, where he had to then go fight his own brother, Conrad Kurz, and he went on this whole galactic kind of rampage of in and out, trying to hunt him down. He runs, he flees, he finds him again, and it's this whole kind of cat and mouse game of the very early origins of basically just the Dark Angels, and what they end up doing is just hunting traitor space marines, specifically those within their own ranks.
So yeah, if you ever wanted to do a Dark Angels versus Dark Angels on the tabletop, you got a perfect setting for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think they even actually
off
have
some of the heraldry.
Yeah, and I think they even actually have models for the Fallen specifically, so you can do that.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, or do they actually have specific models, or did they just kind of release some and paint them differently? I'm trying to remember. Like, I know they have Cypher, but then I thought the box they sold with him was just like your standard Dark Angels, just painted different.
I can look that up real quick, but I believe it's just it's not like anything updated, but there is like a model list called the Fallen.
Yeah.
So if you want to read, I can look that up real quick.
Yeah. So that's kind of their history. You know, they fight their brothers. Their homeworld gets destroyed. Now they got more traitors everywhere. Lion gets locked away. And that's kind of where we left the Lion story for the moment. But we're going to kind of dive into this 210-year period of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. And we'll start with the tactics that they would use during these times. In the waning of the Great Crusade, just before the cataclysmic outbreak of the Horus Heresy, the Dark Angels stood as a towering force, their ranks swelling to an impressive 180,000 warriors. The formidable strength placed them among the upper echelons of the Legiones Astartes, their might rivaling that of the Ultramarines and the Sons of Horus. Though newer, younger legions thought to escape their glory, the Dark Angels remained one of the most potent military powers in the Imperium, their legend immortal across the stars. Yet whispers from surviving records suggest that the numbers might have been far smaller in the field, with some accounts even claiming that a mere 500 or 50,000 warriors. These figures, likely born from confusion and misinterpretation, stem from the Legion's enigmatic and cryptic ways, their organization methods veiled in secrecy, and their intricate ciphers left many to question what they saw. The shifting, sometimes imperceptible lines of command within the Legion only added to the mystery, leaving even the most seasoned Imperial officers bewildered and disoriented when called to fight alongside them. The Dark Angels, it seemed, reveled in the air of mystery. Some of their most senior commanders, especially those veterans forged in the fires of the Great Crusade, seemed to take pride in the disarray. It was not uncommon for the Dark Angels to arrive on the battlefield without revealing the identity of their commander. To those who stood alongside them, it was not immediately clear who was to lead, and it fell to the sharp eye to discern a warlord by the heraldry worn on the banner. To those who guessed correctly or chose wisely by saying nothing at all, respect was granted. Those who misjudged were studied, their worth measured not by a rumor-mongering of the uninitiated, but by their ability to discern the true leadership of the First Legion. These were tests subtle yet deadly for both allies and foes alike. Such practices were most prevalent among the older, battle-hardened veterans of the Dark Angels. Their deeds were legendary, often so vast that even those who had heard of their feats would struggle to believe the full scope of their victories. The tales of their triumphs and sacrifices spread across the Imperium, but the full weight of their glory was known only to those few who would walk the path of battle with them. Even the newly recruited newest recruits could not fully comprehend the depths of the Legion's history, and they would often find themselves bewildered by the chilling precision and lethal beauty of the Dark Angels as they waged war. The Dark Angels were no mere warriors. They were the living, breathing embodiment of the Imperium's might, their every action honed over millennia of unrelenting conflict. Couple decades at this point, but centuries maybe. Despite the dire battles they had faced and the constant grinding march of the Crusade, they have never wavered, and the core of veterans formed from the most battle-tested and disciplined Astartes remain to pass on their hard-won wisdom. The structure of the hexagrammaton and the orders of the Hecatona Sikhitica was forged not just by the means of warfare, but a crucible through which the Legion forged its strength. They were the masters of all forms of combat. No specialization was too advanced, no tactic too intricate for them to master. They wielded their weapons not merely with skill, but with the artistry that transcended the raw power of the newer legions. The Dark Angels' methods of warfare reflected their unique philosophy. Their numbers were often sparse, scattered across the galaxy in small, precise detachments. They did not rely on overwhelming forces, but on the sheer potency of the warriors, their strength resting in the hands of the fewer rather than the many. A typical battle force might be composed of just a handful of chapters, each smaller than the regiments of other legions, yet each capable of striking with unparalleled precision and force. Their flexibility on the battlefield was unmatched, able to shift and reform their forces in an instant to meet any threat. While other legions brought the weight of numbers, the Dark Angels wielded their strength of purpose. To witness the full might of the Dark Angels assembled was a rare and foreboding sight. It was said that when the First Legion stood united, the galaxy itself trembled. Such gatherings only occurred when the darkest of threats loomed on the horizon, and even the most seasoned Imperial soldiers dreaded being called to support the Dark Angels. It was not out of fear of the Astartes themselves, for the Astartes treated their allies with respect. It was rather it was the battlefield itself, brutal, unforgiving, and alien to mortal men. Only the strongest and most fortunate men could hope to survive the carnage that the Dark Angels wrought. Those few who did earn the honor of bearing the marks that spoke of their survival amidst the darkest storms. At the heart of the Dark Angels' power was their fleet, vast, deadly, and ever-moving. The Legion possessed perhaps the greatest warships in the galaxy, ships that loomed like monsters against the stars, their guns bristling with firepower to level entire planets. Their fleet was dispersed as the Legion itself, split into flotillas and patrol squadrons and ranged across the voyage. Some flotillas consisted of the largest and most formidable voyage ships, served as the vanguard of the Dark Angels, carrying entire chapters into battle with the full might of the Imperium behind them. These flotillas could strike without warning, tearing through enemy defenses before unleashing orbital bombardments to pave way for their brother-in-arms. Elsewhere, smaller patrol squadrons roamed the darkest corners of the galaxy, seeking out threats to the Imperium. These fleets were often composed of sleek, fast ships equipped with the finest auger and scanning technologies, their purpose clear: to root out hidden Xenos and traitorous human factions. The warriors that accompanied them were sent to gauge the strength of the enemies and deal swift, decisive blows before retreating back to the safety of their orbital strongholds. For those who proved a threat, the wrath of the Dark Angels was brought down on them from the heavens, and nothing could survive the judgment of the Lion. The Dark Angels did not concern themselves with maintaining vast fortress or holdings across the galaxy. Their power lay not in static bastions, but in their mobility, their ability to strike anywhere with devastating force. Only two great strongholds were known to the Imperium: the ancient fortress of Gramarye, which housed the sacred halls of the Council Masters, and the newer fortress monastery, the Order, on Caliban. These bastions were among the few places where the vast Legion's infrastructure could be found. The rest of their forces existed in the void, their warriors dispersed across the galaxy, ready to answer the call at a moment's notice. This was the Dark Angels, the First Legion. Their deeds, their victories, and their sacrifices were woven into the very fabric of the Imperium, and their mythos as enduring as the stars themselves. From the depths of the fleet to the hollowed halls of the secretive order, they were a force unlike any other, bound by an unbreakable oath and an unyielding purpose. And though they're enemies, they never know the full measure of their strength. The Dark Angel would forever remain the silent watchers of the Imperium, their legacy sealed in blood and sacrifice.
If
That was a
anyone from
mouthful.
GW is listening into this, please re-release Battlefleet Gothic, because I would absolutely love to do a Dark Angels fleet in that tabletop game.
Mm-hmm.
Just a bunch
That
of
would be
small
cool.
little strike craft and stuff, a couple big
Oh, it'd be
things.
so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Dark Angels kind of strike me as like the Ultramarines are always touted as like the best, the most well-rounded, tactical, blah 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 blah. The Dark Angels seem kind of like that plus some, like almost like a superior version of the Ultramarines. Sorry, Blueberry
Well,
fanboys.
yeah, well, no, that's exactly how it would be. Like, the Ultramarines are well-rounded, but the Dark Angels are masters of everything. They are masters of every type of warfare. They're not just well-rounded at everything. They do it all excellent.
Yeah, I think their secrets, as we're coming to realize, is just their made-up super long words that no one can pronounce, like the Hecatoni Sticka. You know, they use these words, and the average person's gonna be like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, and then the Dark Angels know right away. Okay, you're not someone I can trust. You can't even say a basic word like Hikaskamatika. Yeah.
Wait a second. They mispronounce their words. Are you fallen?
Yeah, the Dark Angels are so cool, man. It's like, yeah, they just have these small squads. They don't need a lot because they are the best, and they have the best weapons and war gear and stuff. And yeah, the way they interact with people, like, they're not glory hogs. You know, they just go and get the job done in whatever the best way they possibly can is, and then kind of move on to the next spot.
Yeah, it's super cool. I mean, and we talk about how secretive they are, but you know, they're not like the Raven Guard. They're not all about like that shadow popping up when you don't see them kind of thing. No, when they go out and do their missions, like, you know, they're coming. You know they're there on the battlefield. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like this other stuff, like their lineage and stuff like that, that they keep mysterious. Very cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And before we go on to the next main topic, I did look through the Dark Angels model line on the GW website, and there's no longer models for the Fallen. So I'm guessing those are older models that have since been discontinued or gotten rid of. But I know they used to exist.
Yeah, like from my memory, and you know, I look at minis all day, and it just seeps into my mind. It was just your standard box of Firstborn Dark Angels painted differently, and what made it the Fallen was they sold Cypher with it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah,
basically that was basically it. So, so now that we know about like how they conduct their warfare, let's talk about the hierarchy, the structure, and what makes the Dark Angels tick. So, hierarchy and structure. The Dark Angels, the noble and ancient First Legion, stand as the very genesis of the Emperor's vision for his Legiones Astartes, a template from which all others would follow. Long before the Principia Bellicosa standardized the military doctrines of the Space Marine legions, the Dark Angels forged the foundations upon which the art of war for all transhuman warriors was built. To the First Legion was bestowed a singular sacred mission to explore, refine, and perfect every form of strategy and structure that would ensure the Emperor's warriors could perform with unmatched efficiency across the vast crucible of the Great Crusade. It is whispered among the Imperial scholars that when one speaks of the standard form of a Space Marine Legion, they speak knowingly or unknowingly of the First Legion. In the crucible of the First Legion's campaigns, the very foundations of Legiones Astartes warfare were crafted and sanctified, wrought in fire and blood upon 1,000 nameless battlefields. Rabute Gilman, master of organization and commander of the 13th Legion, would later adapt and embellish this great structure into his Codex Astartes. Yet even the vaunted Gilliman built upon a foundation born of the sacrifice and experience of the Dark Angels, whose ancient doctrines predated all others. When Lionel Johnson, the Lost Son, was found and given command of his legion, he did not discard the wisdom of these progenitors. Instead, he unified their time-tested doctrines into a single, unrelenting vision, binding the chaotic brilliance of his forebears under his singular authority. In his earliest years, the Dark Angels were an ever-shifting storm of war, a legion of experimentation and discovery. They wielded every weapon, studied every style of combat, and tested every strategy in their quest for supremacy. Every possible mode of warfare was explored, from calculated annihilation to subtle assassinations, from massed armor assaults to lightning-fast strikes. The warriors of the First Legion became living manifestations of adaptability, specialists for every foe and battlefield imaginable. Yet for all their skill, this early iteration of the Dark Angels was fluid, undefined, a legion of restless chaos, shifting as tactics rose and fell, evolving with every new campaign. They were not yet a single blade. They were not yet a single blade, but rather a scattered arsenal of unparalleled potential. So back to what we were saying earlier about basically Ultramarines are well-rounded, but these guys are the masters of all of it.
Yeah, it's cool to see how they advance too. With like every new war fought, they gain a new trick for their book, and especially in these early years where like they're just going out doing their first battles. It's like they're mastering it already, picking up new ways and the best way to defeat it. They're not just doing the same tactic over and over against everyone on the planet that they encounter.
Which kind of makes me, maybe it's just because my knowledge of them in 40K is more meme lore related, but it seems like all that kind of goes by the wayside 10,000 years later. But maybe that's the point.
2/3 of it goes by the wayside, and we'll learn more about the hexagrammaton later, and the 2/3 that disappear. But
every time I hear that word, have you guys ever seen the Christian Bale movie Equilibrium with the tetragrammaton? And it definitely gives me very Dark Angels vibes to it with the secrecy and all of that.
Yeah,
I've never seen that movie, but sounds good. I like Christian Bale.
Yeah, if you like gun kung fu, it's a good movie.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
What do they call that
Sounds
style
right
of
up my
fighting?
alley.
Gun kata.
Gun kata, yeah.
All right. But chaos was not their end, it was a forge. From this fluidity emerged a refined and terrible order, a system of overlapping formations and specialized warriors that operated in concert like the gears of some vast divine machine. Each component could stand alone, deadly and purposeful, yet together they became a legion capable of confronting any foe, any battlefield, and mastering it. This system of specialized formations, these overlapping layers of warcraft, became the heart of the Dark Angels' identity, the foundation upon which their greatness was built. Thus, the Dark Angels were more than warriors. They were the architects of the Emperor's War, the progenitors of legionary order, and the first blade drawn against the darkness of old night. From their chaos was born a weapon of unity and power, one that would define the age of the Great Crusade. A weapon that would stand until the bitter turning of the Horus Heresy and beyond, when the echoes of the First Legion's glory would reverberate through all of the Imperium's history.
I just keep wondering, man, like what would the galaxy have looked like if the Primarchs weren't scattered and the Dark Angels were given their right spot as the First Legion, and how much that would have actually then branched down into all the other ones? Like even Reboot Gilliman, like, stole some IP off this guy when writing the Codex Astartes. He's like, yeah, these guys clearly know what they're up to. And yeah, if they were found first, man, and if they were like the leading ones, like, yeah, what would it have all looked like? Very cool. Masters.
Mm-hmm.
You know how Marvel did a whole what if series? I think 40K needs like a what if series. Like, what if the Horus Heresy never happened? You know, what if the Dark Angels were in their rightful spot? Like, there's so many different situations where you could
do the classic Primarch swap where all the loyalists become traitors and all the traitors become loyalists and see what happens.
Oh, that would be so cool. Yeah,
I did listen to the Primarch Project episode, and you did mention the Dornian Heresy, and I thought that would be a really fun concept to actually bring to life. And there was a newer version called the Rebutian Heresy, as stupid as that sounds, but it basically did the same thing, but instead of making Dorn their version of Horus, they made Gilliman their version of Horus. And the choices made in that one, to me, at least made a little bit more sense on which legion fell to which god and all of that. But it's a cool concept. I'm always for exploring something like that.
Yeah, we're all just one coin flip away from turning to chaos, I think, really.
Oh, I'm already there. I mean,
someone's already there.
Slanesh, Zinch, Nurgle, Korn, you call to me.
As Madig Ring or whatever his fucking name is in chat. I wonder if a lot of the conflict between the Primarch might have been muted, and you would have seen Johnson become the equal of Rabute. Yeah, I think he was better than Reboot. Like Reboot was never up for War Master. The Lion was, even when they did like the Imperium Secundus Empire, like yeah, there's kind of some power struggle, but like the Lion was given the rank of War Master. And Reboot is more of the statesman as opposed to the conqueror.
Which I think is, a good choice. I mean, so let's say the what if happened and we reverse trader and loyalist. Would you pick Lionel Johnson as your War Master, Mark?
Yes, I think so. He's the best, man. Like, yeah. All the way.
Well,
that, or it would be cool to see Sanguinius as War Master with the wings and stuff, but
that'd
just
be
black instead of white.
Yeah, leathery demon wings. Yeah.
Oh, that would be super cool.
Well, even taking out the what if scenario, I think if I remember correctly, like whenever Horus was named War Master, there was some mumblings that it should have been the Lion.
Yeah.
So, and that's canon. So,
all right. Well, let's talk a little bit about their hosts and their orders. The First Legion, the Dark Angels, were not mere warriors. They were an intricate tapestry of honor, skill, and mystery, woven with the most intricate layers of organization. To the outside world, they presented a structure as formidable as any other legion. Chapters, companies, and squads arranged to codify discipline of the Principia Bellicosa. This was the public face of the Legion, one that met the gaze of their fellow Astartes, and the appearance itself with cold, disciplined purpose. Yet beneath their noble veneer, with the deepest recesses of the Legion's heart, a second hidden structure pulsed like the blood of a secretive and ancient order. This covert echelon, veiled in shadows and steeped in mystery, was composed of two enigmatic bodies, the great hosts of the Order of Battle, the Hecatonistica. These shadowy entities were not mere organizations. They were keepers and codifiers of a martial knowledge that transcended the mundane, reserved for moments when the galaxy itself trembled on the cusp of war. The great hosts were the larger of the two secretive bodies, numbers swelling in the dozens, each host commanding the allegiance of hundreds. Each host was a brotherhood dedicated to the perfecting of one aspect of warfare, be it the art of siege, the subtleties of skirmish, and the unyielding brutality of shock assault. These warriors were the masters of their chosen craft, and their bond to their discipline was sacred, a bond that drew them closer to the fires of war with every breath. In battle, the hosts did not assemble as one, as their power lay in unity through diversity. Their members, spread across many chapters and companies of the Legion, fought alongside one another as battle brothers, each contributing their singular expertise to the whole. The result was a legion of warriors whose collective strength far exceeded the sum of their parts. No challenge was too great for any unit, for among them stood specialists who could turn the tide of battle with their unparalleled mastery. Yet, only with the direst of circumstances arose did the great host form into their full power. When summoned, they would assemble into a singular force of martial precision, be it the siege rites of the host of stone or the breaching clades of the hosts of the void. They were formidable, their skills honed to perfection. With the full might of the knowledge behind them, they would strike with the fury of a tempest, reshaping the battlefield itself. Each host adhered to a strict hierarchy, yet one far more complex than the open ranks of the Legion. At the core of their hidden order were the masters, marshals, and initiates, bound into cells scattered throughout the Legion's public divisions. These cells, though part of the larger framework of the Legion, operated in complete secrecy, their bonds hidden beneath oaths and transcended rank. A warrior may serve both as his Legion command and his host superior, with both chains of command holding equal weight. This dual loyalty, tempered by tradition and secrecy, was the very soul of the Dark Angel's might.
Yeah, it's just another way that they're able to kind of do everything really good. You know, it's not that they just have kind of one chapter master or one leader. They have kind of two going on. And then the way they kind of split their veterans amongst everyone and just equally. So no matter where you are, you're going to have the punching power of a veteran squad that you need. They don't just have one mass veteran company that kind of gets to rest on their laurels or get thrown at the fight as like the each Dark Angel company or chapter at this point, or whatever they want to call it, had the veterans built in, ready to go.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to organize everything, and I mean, to them, it seems to work to their advantage. They became great at so many different aspects. The great hosts recruited those deemed worthy, watching the warriors of the Legion with a keen eye for potential. When a new recruit was accepted into a frontline company, they found themselves under the scrutiny of the procurators of the hosts, who examined their every action, every decision, to determine if they were worthy of the host's most sacred knowledge. Those deemed worthy were inducted into the deepest rites of war, their power armor marked with the sigil of their host, as they became part of a tradition older than the stars themselves. Within the precincts of the Legion's halls and encampments, these initiates gathered, not in secrecy, but in private, where they could speak freely of the warrior rites and traditions without fear of their censor. Here, they debated strategy, honed their craft, and shared the unspoken knowledge of their hosts, each one training those below in the ways of war. Theirs was a brotherhood not defined by rank, but by their unyielding pursuit of martial perfection. In contrast, the order of the battle, the Hecatonistica, were smaller and more secretive. Though they numbered in the hundreds, each order counted only a few dozen members, warrior brotherhoods devoted to mastering a single aspect of warfare. These enigmatic societies were focused on the destruction of particular foes or the specific fields of combat. When the Legion found itself facing a challenge that defied conventional tactics, it was the orders that took the forefront. The orders, with their cryptic rites and hidden knowledge, were a darker, more isolated force with the Dark Angels. Each order maintained its strict hierarchy, one far more complex and veiled than even the great hosts. Their ranks were marked with ciphers and symbols only understood by those inducted into their mysteries. To gain entry into an order was to be bound by the most ancient of oaths, for their warriors carried the weight of their secret knowledge, ready to wield it in the heat of battle when it was needed most. Unlike the hosts, the orders operated in the shadows, rarely revealing their true strength until the moment of battle arrived. Their sanctums, sacred chambers of studying and training, were hidden aboard warships, deep within the bowels of the Legion's fleet, or in the lonely outposts of war zones. It was here in these secluded places that the true trials of the Order took place, trials that could cost a warrior his life. Only those who had passed these grim rites were granted the full secrets of the Order, bearing its mark upon their armor as a testament to their strength. Among the Order, few could claim an honor of wearing the sigils of multiple fraternities. It was a rare and almost mythical accomplishment, one that only a select few had achieved. Chief among these were Lionel Johnson, who held the highest rank in every order, his mastery of their secrets unparalleled. Then there were the Knight Captain Atreus Ducaleon, whose name was legend, an unparalleled swordsman and master of the blade, who held rank in 3 separate orders, blending their techniques into a style uniquely his own, a style that was a weapon of death in its own purest form. It was in this hidden arcane structure that protected the Dark Angels from the insidious corruption of chaos. Horus's treacherous warrior lodge found no foothold within the rank of the Dark Angels. The Order's militant and the Hexagrammaton stood resolute, their loyalty to the Emperor unshakable, their vigilance against betrayal unwavering. And yet, as the heresy unfolded, the Dark Angels would face a betrayal of their own, a betrayal not from the traitors but from within, a betrayal born from the same pride and jealousy that had once driven the War Master to defy the Emperor himself.
I just love how it's so knightly, like just right down till you have these masters of warfare. They take on their squire, they teach them the secrets, they teach them all the lessons that they can. The Dark Angels aren't just forced to win these lessons of warfare through warfare itself. You know, they have this guy leading them. I can only imagine the secret fighting stances that like some of these guys would eventually pass down. Like, now we're going to learn how to do it this way. And like, this way is much better, but they don't tell everyone that because it's probably harder to learn it that way, whatever these secrets are that they pass down. But yeah, I just love that squire knight relationship that they got going deep.
Yeah, I think it's one of the coolest things that's kind of drawing me more to the Dark Angels. I'm telling you, I want to go out and pick up a box from my local hobby store and just get them put together in like the most knightly way you can. I mean, I think the only second to them on the tabletop is like the Grey Knights, in that kind of medieval look, using the swords and the shields.
Sure.
But like one of the cool things about the Dark Angels that I'm starting to learn too is that they're almost like a micro Imperium. Like everything that happens to them happened to the Imperium as a whole. They have the, their own sort of civil war within itself, and just like their tactics as a whole is kind of got an Imperial feel to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And they had like warrior lodges, which eventually, Chaos had their own kind of version of it that corrupted. But for the Dark Angels, it was allowing them to kind of keep uncorruptible for the moment, keep their secrets, keep everyone safe. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in there that we're slowly going to be breaking down here. Like we keep saying the hexagrammatron and a couple other big things, but we're just slowly breaking it all down into our little trees here.
Do you remember like back in school when you had those little fortune cookie things that everyone would pull up and write a little thing? That's kind of how I feel as we're unpacking the Dark Angels. Like each little bit, we're peeling back one little section of the fortune.
Yeah. And like part of the way the Dark Angels works is like you're not supposed to know it all. Like, just when you think you learned all the secrets, you realize all those secrets were just there to kind of keep you from the true truth of it all, the true truth of the matter. Yeah. And the just built-in layers of redundancy too that they have they just have so many different little areas that they can kind of attack from or defend from or just whatever. They're just masters of it all.
Yep. Secrets within secrets within secrets.
So we'll learn about the 500. Break it down a little more. Upon the shadowed soil of Caliban, where the ancient forest whispered secrets older than time, there stood the first 500 warriors chosen and consecrated, a vanguard of the Dark Angels to stand alongside their newly found Primarch, Lionel Johnson. Brought to the world by the Emperor himself, these warriors would bear the title of legend, the 500. Theirs was a role unlike any other within the Ordo Militant of the First Legion. Bound by an oath both sacred and secretive, they became keepers of hidden truths and silent watchers of their own Primarch. It was not the enemies of the Imperium they scrutinized, but the Lion himself, a figure as inscrutable as he was indomitable. For all these doctrines crafted by the ancient hosts of the Legion, no teachings had prepared them for being such as this, a Primarch, a living icon of war and death. In this quest to serve, they observed, they learned how to best fight at the Lion's side, which weapons might harmonize with the martial wrath, and what reshaping the Legion would require to align itself with his will. Yet Lionel Johnson, true to his nature, offered neither counsel nor command. Yeah, that's funny. He demanded proof in blood and fire, his silence as impenetrable as the mists of the forests of his homeworld. He gave no guidance, no word of respect, only the cold opportunity to earn his regard on the battlefield. Thus, the 500 became his shadowed sentinels, sworn to guard the Primarch with their life, while their unraveling of the enigma of his being. They fought and bled at his side, recorded in silence what their master would not speak. From the perilous watch was born a tome of profound reverence and unparalleled secrecy, the Lion Codex. Within its ciphered pages lay the essence of the Primarch's tactic and temperament, a labyrinth of knowledge decipherable only by its authors. It was a treasure of immeasurable worth, for with these hard-won truths, the Council of Masters sought to mold the Dark Angels in the image of their Lord. Yeah, it's cool how like there's these guys and like the Lion's not giving them anything, where everyone else in the Dark Angels, like they pick an apprentice and they teach them and they raise through the ranks with them. But these guys are like, no, we need to just sit, observe, study, like, and then we'll learn the best through observation what he's truly like. To guard the sanctity of his wisdom, the 500 accepted no successors. Their number was sacred, their duty eternal. With every warrior that fell, a piece of their knowledge perished with them, ensuring that the secrets they carry would never be wrested by unworthy hands. The lion himself remained silent to this enterprise. Never did he acknowledge their purpose. Never did a word of praise escape his lips for the unyielding honor guard at his side. And yet he never forbid their study. On the eve of countless battles, the Primarch would stand alone, an immovable bastion of calm, as though waiting, expecting the warriors of the 500 to assemble at his flank before he strode forth to war. For the Dark Angels, his silent acceptance was more than words could convey. It was the ultimate recognition, a mark of favor that no guard's gaudy laurels or victory trappings could equal. The 500 dwindled, their numbers thinned by the centuries of conflict, but their legend grew eternal. They were the unseen watchers, the first to stand with the lion and the last to abandon him. Their duty an echo of unspoken truths they kept. In the hearts of the Dark Angels, their story is myth, their names as reverent whispers upon the tongues of those who remember. The 500 were not merely warriors, they were a monument to silent, inevitable bond that the Primarch and his legion, the bond forged in the mystery, duty, and blood.
I mean, you're this big, stoic, heroic guy. Of course you're not going to give any praise to your subordinates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And also, like, just where you come from, you're not giving them any secrets either. You're not telling them nothing. Like, you're just letting them kind of be there. And just like how the lion had to win all his knowledge fighting the warp spawn beasts on Caliban, it's like that's the best way to learn, through blood and trial and fire. And his guardians then had to learn that same way.
Yeah, he teaches you through the experience you get, not through any writings or any information he's going to tell you about. Go and figure out how to do this. And if you fail, that's one step in the right direction to becoming successful.
Yeah.
And just like any good coming of age story or a rom-com where you're trying to impress your future father-in-law, any kind of acknowledgement is a win. It's like, did he just huff and nod at you? He never
Wow.
does that. Holy crap! You're on his good side now.
Yeah, it's so cool how he doesn't acknowledge them, yet clearly he allows them to be there, and just how much these 500 shape the Legion to the Lion's will without even the Lion having to say anything about it. Like, just kind of lets it happen. I wonder how many are like left at the end of the Horus Heresy. Like, I'd imagine there's still a handful. I didn't go into any detail about Dark Angel's characters, but I'm sure if I did, I would have learned about some that are still around.
There's probably 300 left, and you know what they did to the Greeks.
Yes.
Hey.
They got flung through the warp back in time, and that's what happened.
I did have a question about at least a couple of, I guess, Space Marine characters, but this is more like, nah, I'm not going to ask that here. There's no time for it. But it's like,
no, there's time.
No,
come on. What kind of fucking?
I'm curious.
Well, we haven't mentioned this specific character yet for the Dark Angels, so I'll save it if we have time for a Tales from the Warp.
Do it now.
Fine. Okay. There are some name characters in each of the legions. Like, okay, Dark Angels, you got Luther. He's a very important Dark Angels character who was, I believe, the Space Marine. But the thing is, the Space Marine procedure is done on like 10, 12-year-olds or started. But a lot of these characters, like Luther, like Corferon from the Word Bearers, and I can't remember the name of the guys that followed Lehman Russ. Yeah, those characters that were there from the beginning, they were also transitioned into Space Marines, but they were obviously way too old. So how does that work? That was the question I always had.
They aren't transformed into Space Marines. They're transformed into like super soldiers. So, they make them as big and powerful as possible, as strong and as durable. They might even give them the black carapace and stuff. But ultimately, they didn't have the gene seed. Like, they didn't have the ability to spit acid. And they didn't have, they might have had the two hearts, but like, it was a different approach for doing it. Maybe they just gave them one heart and it was like a bionic heart for really good blood pumping on like big scale human. So it was a completely different process. Like, we know that there are many different ways to make a super soldier. And while the Astartes is like a very reliable way, believe it or not, a mass produced way, this other way takes a little more care or time or just resource intense, or just doesn't work as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point because I didn't really think about that.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
that was always something that struck me as weird. Because like these guys were touted as Space Marines, but they were way too old to have begun the actual transformation process. So like, how did they get to that point without, but while bystepping the the age limit essentially? So
Yeah.
that was my off the wall question, but yeah.
Yeah. Like through bionic implants and genetic enhancements.
Sign me
So
up. Where
instead of
can
the
I get
gene
some of
seed,
those?
they went a different way. Yeah, and maybe that's what we need to say to everyone our age, where we've definitely missed the Space Marine fan or the Space Marine age limit. We can still do this route. Pump us up, cut off my arm, give me a bionic arm. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, right. Oh, man, maybe my knees wouldn't hurt so much anymore.
Oh yeah.
That's why you haven't applied the sacred oils of WD-40 straight into your kneecaps.
No,
Right
I think
in
it's
there.
funny. Anyone that's a fan of like Harry Potter, those kids usually get their letters to go to Hogwarts around the age of 11 and 12. But no, in 40K, you get inducted into becoming a Space Marine and get all these extra genetics implanted into you.
at the
Excellent.
ripe young age of 10.
What a coming of age story that is. Cool.
Looks like Skeleton had a clarification on the question I had previously asked. Core Pharaoh just got a lot of the armor and such, if I remember, but most of the Primarchs have some sort of adopted father figures. Luther was definitely one for. Luther was definitely Johnson's.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
man, I'm trying to Google the term. I know they have a term for these kind of Space Marines. It's not proto Space Marines, proto Astartes. I forget what it is, but yeah, there's a bunch of them that exist for sure.
okay. I guess while you're looking that up, I will go into. Of course, you give me the hard word. Hexagrammaton. Hexagrammaton. That's
Nailed
what
it.
this is. I try my best. Okay. In the ancient days of the Great Crusade, the Primarch Lionel Johnson forged a legacy that would echo through the stars. Upon the first legion, known as the Dark Angels, he imparted the organizational wisdom he had gleaned from the Knights of the Order on Caliban. The Lion's tenets of loyalty, discipline, and self-sufficiency became the foundation upon which the legion was built, woven into every action, every strategy, and every warrior's soul. Born from the Terran warriors who were given the gene seed of the steadfast, if reticent, lion, the Dark Angels stood as paragons of dedication. Their temperament, like their Primarch, was a calm and calculating one, slow to anger, yet relentless and near unstoppable once ignited. They were a breed apart, disciplined, purposeful, and utterly unyielding. In those early days, before the flames of the Horus Heresy scarred the galaxy, the legions of the Space Marines were vast and powerful, numbering 10,000 or more warriors under a single banner. The precise number of the Dark Angels during the Great Crusade and the Heresy remained shrouded in mystery, but it was said that their legion, while potent, was considered moderate in size in comparison to the others of their time. Their symbol, the hexagrammaton, became the standard of the legion, a representation of the intricate balance and structure that defined the Dark Angels. It was displayed along the emblem of the winged sword, a symbol of their honor and their unbroken will. Under the guidance of their Primarch, the First Legion was reshaped into a formidable force, restructured into the hexagrammaton, the Six Wings, specialized formations that stood apart from the Legion's regular chain of command. These elites were born of an ancient tradition, merging the old Terran principles of the Principia Bellicosa with the knightly traditions of Caliban. Their origin could be traced back to the earliest days of the Legiones Astartes, where the 6 hosts of the Angels of Death were forged, each host a specialized unit with its own singular purpose. When the Lion reunited with his legion on Caliban, the ancient knowledge of the Order and the 6 hosts was melded into the hexagrammaton, a creation that was as much a legacy as it was a weapon. The 6 Wings became mysterious, almost mythical aspect of the Legion, a shadowy, hidden force that moved through the ranks, seldom seen, but always felt. The Legion's structure, inspired by the Principia Bellicosa, was a one of great discipline and strategy. The warriors of the Dark Angels were divided into chapters, each led by a master, beneath whom were orders commanded by paladins. Further still, the formation was broken into companies and squads, with captains and sergeants holding the reins of leadership. But the true power of the Dark Angels lay in the six wings, whose members, whether captains, sergeants, or legionnaires, moved with a purpose beyond the ordinary command structure. These elite warriors would be called upon when the Legion required their unique skills, assembling at the behest of their voted lieutenant, who was both the commander of the wing and the trusted counsel to the Lion himself. The voted lieutenants of the six wings were not appointed by higher authority, but elected by their peers, chosen for their wisdom, strength, and leadership. These leaders were as much a myth as man, figures shrouded in mystery, elected by the Legion and bound by oath to guide their wings with unwavering dedication. Should one of these lieutenants fall, their successor would be chosen before their death, ensuring the wing's leadership remained unbroken. The Council of Masters, a revered assembly of these voted lieutenants, would gather in the great fortress of Greymayer, how do we pronounce it? Gramarye, and late in the midst of the battles, where their decisions shape the fate of worlds. Their masters, bound together by shared purpose, stood as the embodiment of the Legion's unshakable will, their council as a beacon of wisdom for their Primarch and their brothers. In the fires of battle, when a commander required the aid of one of the six wings, they would send forth a request to the council. Upon approval, the wing would assemble, answering the call to engage in operations of unmatched precision and ferocity. Under the direct command of their elected lieutenant, the wings moved like a shadow, swift and deadly, always watching, always ready. The Dark Angels were not just warriors, they were the wrath of the Lion, and when the wings spread, the galaxy trembled.
Yeah, super cool how, they had their standard Legion layout where, they got their tactical Marines, their Devastators, their Assault Marines, but then on top of that, they got these super elite branches that you can petition. And each branch has its own very unique combat style and very unique purpose. And like I kind of said, you have to petition them. So you call upon them and you might not always get them. They might be doing better things, or they might just not feel like it's worth their time or whatever. But it also adds to this aloofness of like, well, what are those guys up to? Like, what secrets are they out doing? Where are they right now that they can't be here? All that kind of stuff. A lot of them we've heard of, like we've heard of the Deathwing and the Raven Ring, but we'll learn a lot about some other ones too.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the Deathwing Protocol. The Deathwing, an ancient revered brotherhood within the Dark Angels, was born from the Legion's elite veteran Cataphractii Terminators, warriors bound by oaths so sacred that no force, no matter how insurmountable, could sway them from their duty. These formidable guardians, often tasked with protecting the Legion's officers, included their Primarch Lionel Johnson himself, carried the weight of responsibility upon their shoulders. To serve in the Deathwing was to be bound to an eternal vow, one that demanded unwavering resolve. For once a warrior swore allegiance, nothing, neither the fury of battle nor the specter of death, could halt their march. In the face of annihilation, when all others may falter, the Deathwing stood resolute. Their advance was unstoppable, their will unyielding. Where others might retreat or fall back, the Deathwing remained, an immovable force, a living testament to the power of duty and resolve. It was in these moments of impossible odds, when the very nature of the battlefield seemed to defy all hope, that the Legion called upon the Deathwing. The warriors of the Deathwing were the storm itself, unyielding, relentless, and unwavering in their resolve. What set the Deathwing apart from the legions and chapters of the 41st Millennium with their singular commitment? The entirety of the Dark Angels' first company fought exclusively in the sacred Terminator armor. This heavy, near-impervious armor became their second skin, their badge of honor. The Deathwing were not just warriors, they were living citadels of defiance. Their resolve was legendary. Each warrior a bulwark against the relentless tide of the enemy. Never giving an inch, never bending to the pressure of battle, even when retreat would be a more prudent course. But the Deathwing was not merely a tactical formation. To be inducted into its ranks is to enter a realm of darkness and secrecy, to be entrusted with the most forbidden knowledge of the Dark Angels. Upon ascension to the Deathwing, a warrior becomes privy to the ancient and terrible secrets of the chapter. Secrets known only to the most trusted of the brethren. The darkest of these secrets is the tale of betrayal, of Luther's treachery in the fall of the Legion's own, the Fallen, whose legacy haunts the Dark Angels to this very day. Even the Lion himself, the Primarch who once led them, was lost in the shadows of this terrible saga. The Deathwing is more than a force of warriors. It is a living, breathing testament to the Legion's enduring pain. Its eternal duty and its unyielding commitment to the secrets to the Guard, no matter the cost. They are the darkness that watches, the sword that strikes without mercy, and the last line of defense against a galaxy that would seek to undo the glory of the Dark Angels.
Yeah, so cool. These are the classic Terminator models, and man, they look so good in their cataphracti armor, all blacked out, wearing robes, and they have like it's like Teutonic Knights almost, with like the feathered helmets coming off, or the feathers coming off the helmets and stuff. So cool. They got some great minis for them. I'll tell you that much. That every time I look at them, it makes me want to either go rob a bank so I can afford them, or buy a 3D printer.
Oh, that's the hardest thing. Yeah.
We just need like for like each of the Horus Heresy legions, like we just need to like showcase their mini line, because like all of them are great. Like,
yeah. Classic. Yeah. So Deathwing, they're just like these immovable guys. They're the best of the best. They got the best war gear, the best armor. And when they are on the battlefield, there's nothing stopping them. They're gonna achieve their task or die trying, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just how unbreakable these guys are in the face of like insurmountable odds. It definitely gives you just that medieval knight feel, you know, like you got your bastion wall, and they're standing resolute to any threat coming forward.
Yeah. Purge says, isn't there interlinked lore about the Deathwing and the Legion of the Damned? I really don't think so. You know, there might be something, but I don't think so. And if it is, it's nothing solid. Legion of the Damned are a very specific, different thing that's like intentionally ambiguous in what they are, where they come from. Now, if you want to talk about the Deathwing and links to Native Americans, that's fun to go dive back into ancient old lore and look at all the artwork of Deathwing as they're wearing feathers and shit. But yeah. Up next, we got the Ravenwing Protocol. The Ravenwing Protocol, born in the earliest strategies devised by the Legiones Astartes, was a testament to the relentless pursuit of perfection in rapid strike warfare. Its origins trace back to the nomadic techno-barbarian war clans of the pre-unification Terra, where the art of swift, unyielding raids and devastating search and destroy tactics was first honed. These primordial warriors, born from the chaos of the world, still struggling for unity, crafted formations that could strike swiftly and disappear into the shadows, an unstoppable force in the hands of those who wielded them. When the Lion's Legion discovered the lost world of Caliban during the Great Crusade, these ancient tactics were brought to life once again. But now, the once bloodthirsty steeds of flesh and bone that carried the Knights of Caliban were replaced by something far more formidable. Machines of unyielding metal, sleek and deadly, crafted to carry the warriors of the Ravenwing across any terrain with speed and precision. These new steeds, powered by ancient anti-gravitic units and all-terrain bikes, embody the perfect fusion of the old and the new, the primordial instincts of the Knights of Caliban and the technological mastery of the Astartes. The Ravenwing became more than just a force. It became an embodiment of the Dark Angel's unyielding nature. Where once the Caliban warriors had ridden the flesh of the beast, they now rode upon cutting-edge technology. Their charge as swift and deadly as the storm itself, tearing through the battlefield with speed that left no room for retaliation. A shadow on the winds of war, the Ravenwing struck at the heart of enemies, leaving nothing but chaos in their wake. As the knights of old were reborn in the form of unstoppable warriors on machines of war. This protocol, this devastating tactic of rapid strike and overwhelming force, was the legacy of the long-forgotten time, revived and perfected under the watchful eye of the Legion. It is not merely a method of warfare, it is a way of life, a manifestation of the Dark Angel's dedication to the mastery of speed and precision. The Ravenwing, like their Primarch, was a living legend, racing through the stars with an unstoppable will, their enemies only knowing the storm when it was already too late. Yeah. They're just too cool, man. Like, just like you have the knights and their horses, now they're like trading that horse for that sweet anti-gravity bike. Hops on that boy, instead of neigh, it's like just fucking engine.
I wonder if they ever got into any kind of street races with white scars.
No, these are no
Just saying.
tolerant type folk. You know,
Yeah.
they're here to kill and do their duty and to yeah.
Yeah,
no,
they definitely have that cavalry feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's what kind of makes it funny to me. Is just like, well, the white scars are all about their speed and their cavalry and their vehicles. So I got it in my head that like some white scar challenge some Raven Wing Dark Angel to some kind of a speed race at some point during the
It's
Great
race
Crusade.
day on Caliban, and here we got our contestants.
Oh
Coming
no,
up
they're being
first.
chased by great beasts.
Well, this race got just a lot more interesting, didn't it, Jeffrey?
Yeah.
Everyone's
It's
waiting
just
at
that
the.
perfect transition. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say everyone's waiting at the end of the race, and the announcer comes over. Oh, sorry, all teams have been wiped out.
The beast got him. Yeah, it's just that
Wait.
perfect transition from the knightly orders and how they were doing it to that next step. You know, we talked in the last episode just about the transformation of Caliban and how lots were kind of like, this is not the Caliban we once knew. And this is just another prime example of just going from horseback to flying machines.
Must have been quite the culture shock, but all right. I guess let's talk about another wing of the of this hexagrammaton, the Dreadwing protocol. Not Deathwing, Dreadwing. The Dreadwing stood as the very embodiment of unrelenting total warfare, a force whose tactics and weapons were feared as they were shrouded in darkness. The chosen leader of this devastating wing, the Dreadbringer, was a commander whose very presence on the battlefield heralded destruction on an unimaginable scale. Elected to lead through fearsome battle prowess and unwavering loyalty, the Dreadbringer commanded his destroyer squads with cold precision, unleashing unspeakable devastation upon those who dare stand against the Dark Angels. Their strike was one of total annihilation, sweeping across the battlefield with relentless fury, supported by a vast array of armored units. Land Raiders, Spartan assault tanks, Mastodons, and the legendary Fellblades rumbled forward. Their massive forms like harbingers of doom, their advanced weaponry carving a swath through the enemy lines. But it was the weapons of the Dreadwing that truly set them apart, for they wielded the darkest and most forbidden of munitions. Phosphex, Rad, and Vortex weapons. The very names whispered in fear were the tools with which the Dreadwing turned the tide of battle, spreading death and despair across the field. These weapons, shunned by many for their malevolent nature, were the Dreadwing's signature. Phosphex burned through flesh and bone with an unquenchable fire. Rad spread radioactive death and had twisted the very fabric of life, and Vortex weapons, the most insidious of all, tore the very fabric of reality itself, unraveling existence with a terrifying finality. These were the tools of the Dreadwing, the instruments through which they brought ruin to their enemies, leaving naught but scorched earth and shattered remnants of those foolish enough to face them. The Dreadwing was not merely a force of destruction, they were a harbinger of the end, a dark and terrible presence that wielded death with the efficiency of a predator and the wrath of an unstoppable storm. Their methods were forbidden, their weapons feared, and their names spoken only in hushed tones. In the shadow of the Dreadwing, all who faced them knew the inevitable annihilation. So this kind of basically is like an army of exterminatus, it sounds like.
Yeah, mini exterminatus machines, these ones. Yeah.
Basically, if none of the other wings were sufficient, or I guess if the lion was just really pissed off that one day, he sends these guys in. That's your total annihilation.
Yeah. And yeah, these guys are just wielding those weapons of the dark age of technology, where other chapters, they might have enough to equip a handful of guys. These guys have all of them and in abundance, from phosphorus to rad to vortex weaponry, which is fucking cool, shooting vortexes at people. Getting them sucked into another dimension.
So let me get this right. You've got your medieval bulwark knights, you've got your cavalry, and then you just have your artillery to wipe out anything that stands before you.
Well, we come to the artillery eventually. I think it might even be the next one. So these guys would be maybe more like guys with torches and flame. And just like,
Okay.
they cut you with a sword and then they hit you with the fire and burn your body so nothing remains of you, like yeah. Like I just imagine these guys going against like ancient Xenos with like secrets that are just too dangerous to allow to be kept, and these guys just go in and just wipe it all out. Like nothing can remain.
Gotcha. Oh man, brutal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk next about the Firewing protocol, the next side of it. And the Firewing, the smallest, most enigmatic of the 6 wings of the Hexagrammaton, was a force forged in the shadows of war. A whispered legend among the ranks of the First Legion during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. It was a wing dedicated not to the brutal force or overwhelming might, but to the subtle and deadly art of precision warfare. Within its ranks, a disparate yet united brotherhood of stalkers, champions, and Moritat killers forged a singular bond, a bond bound by the mastery of their blade, their unparalleled skills as duelists, and their terrifying proficiency as assassins. No warrior was their equal in the quiet, lethal dance of death. The Firewing's aim was not mere carnage. It was the destruction of the enemy's spirit, the unraveling of their will to fight. Their method was insidious, whether brought to noble and brutal clash of blades in single combat at the heart of a battle, or through the shadowed strikes of unseen killers who lurked beyond the enemy's lines, striking where their foes least expected. When released upon the battlefield, the Firewing did not seek to overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers of force. Instead, they waged a war of wills, targeting the very core of their enemy's leadership, seeking to break their resolve and sow the seeds of chaos long before the first strike was ever made. In the days following the cataclysm of the Horus Heresy, the Firewing was disbanded, its warriors scattered, its purpose lost to the shifting tides of betrayal and ruin. Yet, despite its dissolution, the legacy of the Firewing lived on, faint but undeniable. Heraldic traces of its existence can be found in the sigils of the Consecrators, a second founding successor chapter of the Dark Angels, a whispered connection to the forgotten time when the Firewing's quiet fury reigned on the battlefield. The Firewing may have been disbanded, but its shadow lingers, and its secrets are not so easily buried.
So these guys are almost like honor duelists or like humiliators almost. Is the vibe I kind of get for where, yeah, like we said, the other Raven Wing is very clearly they're meant for rapid strikes, where these guys are meant to like, I will target out your leader. I'm going to challenge into single combat. I'm going to win, and everyone else can either surrender or you're next type thing.
Well, this is. I mean, okay, we had the Raven Wing, which made me think of White Scars. This is making me think of like Raven Guard plus, like that calculated pinpoint strike almost. So
yeah, but like I feel like these guys are more like honor bound and not like sneaky.
Yeah.
Like I think they're calling people out on the battlefield. They're doing the classic pose, get over here, and challenging like leaders and stuff. But sure, this is almost more like reminiscent of almost like Horus's Legion's tactics of like striking out the enemies, like challenging a little bit. But even then, it's so unique. It's super cool to see that it carries on not in the Dark Angels, but like a whole chapter is almost like this now, where it kind of gets disbanded and retaken on by a second founding chapter.
I gotcha. I mean, the way you're kind of describing it's making me think of like a Victorian era duelist, like pulling out his white glove, smacking you in the face, and challenging you out in the back garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Skeleton here actually just brought up what I was kind of thinking was each of these protocols seem to be a bit of what another legion specializes in.
Yeah, it goes back to the Dark Angels were the masters of all ways of warfare, not just one. They specialized in it all. They checked the box on everything. They rolled 6s on all their character creation sheets, and they're just doing what they need to do, which is all of it.
Yeah, they definitely have that jack of all trades kind of vibe to them for sure.
Master of all trades.
Yeah, master of all trades. Yeah.
We don't want one of the Firewings to come after you and challenge you in single combat because you're dishonoring them. We don't need that.
I'm just a measly human. There's no way I'm going to survive.
No, but I need you, and that's why I don't want you dead like that. Come on.
You think
Up
if I
next,
give myself over to the ruinous powers that they'd give me a little bit of extra power?
I think we can only hope for your sake. The next of the hexagrammaton are the Iron Wing. Long before the fires of the Great Crusade fully ignited, when the first of the Emperor's Space Marines were unleashed to purge the galaxy of threats too dire to allow the future of mankind to falter, the Iron Wing Protocol was born. Crafted in the crucible of necessity, it was a vision designed to amplify the superhuman strength of the Legiones Astartes with the unstoppable might of bespoke armored units. The Emperor, ever a master of war, sought to fuse the raw power of his creation with the terrifying strength of machines. From this vision emerged the first of the great war engines, the Land Raider, a massive behemoth of iron and fire, and the mighty dreadnoughts, ancient titans in close support. Each manifestation of brutal force that could shatter any foe. These creations forged for the relentless pursuit of annihilation were entered into the Presinica Bellicosa, the Precipia. How'd you guys say that? I know you said it nicely.
Principia Bellicosa.
Precipia.
Man, we're going to have
Bellicosa.
to get more dollars and to send you to more speaking lessons with Trevor Buzak.
I was gonna say we're clearly not.
That's
paying
the goal,
Trevor
man.
Buzak
$1
enough.
at a time. Yeah, you're just throwing money into the money pit at that point. Like it's a waste. But their design set to be expanded upon and wielded by the legions that would follow. The 10th and the 4th legions embrace these new weapons with favor, their ranks swelling with the power of this new martial doctrine. But the Dark Angels, ever meticulous and ever vigilant, did not simply accept these innovations. They would mold them into something more. With their indomitable will and cunning, they took the Iron Wing Protocol and honed it, refining it to serve their own mysterious ends. The shock application of brute force, once a tool of the Emperor's broader crusade, became an instrument of the Dark Angels' dark and ever-changing purpose. The Iron Wing became more than a mere doctrine of war. It became a harbinger of unstoppable destruction, wielded by the Dark Angels with precision and calculated fury. It was a testament to their dedication to the Emperor's vision, but also the reflection of their own inscrutable drive for perfection in warfare. While the others wielded these new weapons of war, the Dark Angels would shape them, adapt them, and make them their own, becoming masters of the art of annihilation. Yeah. An armored fist. Well, all Astartes, I guess, are that, but an armored vehicle mastery.
Yep. And I like how the notes just point out this was basically also lifted from the Iron Warriors and the Iron Hands, who also like machinery and whatnot. So,
yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing as we're going through describing that, I think that everyone listening in needs to remember too, is that it seems like they're taking a lot of stuff from the other chapters that are out there, but these are the first. All the other chapters got their ideas from them because they mastered each of these different sectors.
Yeah, because while the lion wasn't found till later, the Dark Angels were still the first created in the first, they were around during the Age of or the Unification Wars during the very end of it and stuff, trying to master and learn all these different tactics. Like we mentioned, the Raven Wing, that's where they kind of learned that tactic of super quick hit and runs.
All right. Though that kind of makes me go back to the what ifs that we were talking about. Like, say the Dark Angels took on any one legion that also had that specialization, who would win? Who would win?
Dark Angels, man.
Yep.
Yeah, not only did they have the tactics with throw in, they also have the better tech.
I would agree.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. With the better tech, that would be that would be the kicker. But we have one final wing from this hexagrammaton, and that is the Storm Wing Protocol. Among the 6 wings of the hexagrammaton, none could match the size and power of the Storm Wing. It stood as the beating heart of the Dark Angels' might, incorporating the vast majority of the Legion's line, infantry training battalions, and mobile ordnance batteries. The warriors of this wing were the embodiment of discipline, their spirits as unyielding as the iron of their weapons. Trained in the ancient and storied arts of close orders warfare, they were steadfast in defense and unrelenting in their assault. Their ranks were filled with veteran warriors, the stalwart core of the Legion's infantry companies, who, under the most harrowing fire, could execute even the most intricate of maneuvers with unparalleled precision and resolve. But the Stormwing was more than just the embodiment of martial prowess. It was a tactical formation honed for the most brutal and unforgiving of warfare. It stood as a testament to the Dark Angel's mastery of war, specially designed for spaceborne sporting operations, exclusively composed of breacher squads armed with mighty boarding shields. The Stormwing was forged for a singular devastating purpose: to tear through the hulls of enemy vessels with the fury of a storm and bring the fight directly to the heart of their foes. In the tumult of the Great Crusade, when the galaxy trembled before the might of the Emperor's will, the Stormwing rose to meet every challenge. Their focus was not simply to defeat their enemies, but to annihilate them completely, obliterating their defenses with tireless, relentless might. When the need for precision, strength, and implacable fury was greatest, the Stormwing was there, striking with the unstoppable force of a tempest, bringing to ruin all who stood in its way.
Cool. Yeah, and like the difference between these guys and like the Dreadwing is, I feel like the Dreadwing is more against flesh and bone, where these guys are like, your city is no longer gonna be there. Like it's all gonna get crushed under ordnance. Everyone kind of has a unique way of destroying everything that they love, or everything they don't like.
So as you were saying, this is more of like the artillery side of things when it comes to the medieval combat.
Yeah,
So,
catapult
awesome.
men.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
I got my ballistas, my catapults, and my trebuchets. What you gonna do?
I just started watching Gladiator 2 earlier, and the very first scene, they have like fucking boats with like siege towers on them, and it was the craziest thing. I was like, holy fuck, they're shooting ballista and shit. I'm like, holy fuck,
That's
holy
awesome.
fuck. It was a situation. A spectacle, as they say. Yeah.
Well, let's get into a little bit on the more elite forces. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Inner Circle Knights Cenobium. And I gotta say, with the tabletop side of things, the Inner Circle miniatures that they have are probably some of my favorite Dark Angels ones. Those are like the most medieval-looking robed guys. They've got the big shields. They've got the swords. Very cool.
Yeah, and like one thing to picture too when we're talking Dark Angels is back in the day their armor was black and they had a lot of red accents. It wasn't this like forest green necessarily. And yeah, like you said, just even their helmets, the way they're like grilled and stuff, like it all just is so fucking cool.
Yeah, I almost like that they have. It's more like a black and red with hints of like a dark green now. How it's kind of changed a little bit, and it's not even like a red; it's like a dark crimson almost.
Yeah.
But okay, so within the hallowed ranks of the First Legion, there existed a brotherhood of warriors unlike any other, an elite force of untold strength and unwavering resolve. The Inner Circle Knights Cenobium. They were no mere Astartes; they were chosen few, the most dedicated and relentless of the Legion's warrior adepts. Only those who had proven their absolute loyalty, commitment, and skill could ascend to the exalted ranks of the Cenobite, earning the sacred right to bear the cipher of one of the Dark Angel's mysterious and storied orders. Clad in the resplendent and formidable cataphracti pattern Terminator armor, the Cenobites were a sight to behold. Their power armor, intricately adorned with the symbols and heraldry of the First Legion, marked them as the vanguard of the Emperor's wrath. Each plate of the armor was both a shield against the devastations of the Crusade's weapons and the gleaming testament to the indomitable spirit of the Dark Angels. The storm of shrapnel, flame, and devastation that swept across battlefields held little fear for these warriors. Their armor could endure it all, their resolve even more so. Armed with the finest weapons the Legion could provide, these knights brought the full fury of the Dark Angel's wrath into the heart of enemy strongholds. Their primary arsenal consisted of the mighty tyrannic greatsword, a blade that could cleave through the thickest of armor with ease, and the plasma caster, a unique weapon to the Dark Angels. This small, compact plasma weapon was housed with the vambrance of the Cenobites, allowing them to strike with unerring precision while remaining unencumbered with the bulk of heavier arms. The Cenobites were not simply warriors. They were living embodiment of the Dark Angel's unyielding will, a force of righteous fury and relentless purpose. When they entered the fray, it was not a mere battle. They were the harbingers of destruction, the bringers of retribution, standing resolute and unwavering against any foe regardless of the odds. Each blow they carried the weight of centuries of tradition, and each victory was a further step in the ancient and eternal struggle that bound them to the Emperor's will. But yeah, I mean, you've got this just centuries of knowledge, and it's being passed from adept to adept. I mean, just the skills that they have at this point sets them aside.
And then the skills, and then that second piece, all the extra fancy war gear. They carry these great swords. They have a unique plasma blaster on their arm. And they combine a lot of different elements of because these guys aren't a part of a dedicated branch of the hexagrammaton. They're like this own unique kind of inner different thing, but they combine a lot. Like they combine the unique war gear, they combine the Terminator armor. They could be precision strikers with teleporting in at the exact moment. And then their legions manifest. Like every time I picture Blood Angels, I'm usually picturing a guy with a big two-handed sword, holding it in that classic like double sword up kind of stance. And these guys are the epitome of that.
Yeah, especially it shows that on the model too, because I think a few of them are holding this great sword, and it is so much larger than like your typical power sword.
We're talking like a 10-foot sword, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that barely registers as a great sword to an Astartes, so.
Yeah, they're very cool looking. Go if you don't know what these guys look like, go look at the Inner Circle Knights Cerbinium, or whatever you said.
Yeah, yep. You think in Lionel Johnson's hand, those great swords look like little daggers?
Gladius is more like it. Yeah. Cool. The other thing, we've mentioned it many times, all the different war gear the Dark Angels have. So we'll jump into that next. The weapons of the Old Knight. As the Emperor's first, the Dark Angels were not born of the same augments forged from the Emperor's alliance with the Mechanicum, but from a far older, more arcane source, an arsenal steeped in the blood and fire of Terran's unification wars. These were not merely weapons, they were relics, forged in a time when the fate of the Imperium hung in the balance, potent artifacts of power and mystery. Their forms were often difficult to replicate, shrouded in secrecy and treacherous to wield. In a time, many of these sacred implements were forbidden, their very designs lost to the annals of history. When the Great Crusade began in earnest, the Emperor decree sought to standardize and replicate the tools of war across the legions. The Dark Angels stood apart. Even as the Forge World across the Imperium churned out war gear for the newly formed Legiones Astartes, the Dark Angels clung fiercely to their ancient relics, weapons that were not merely tools of destruction, but sacred symbols of their legacy. The techno-arcana within these weapons was unknown to all but the Dark Angels, and even the Emperor himself had decreed that the secrets would never pass into the hands of Mars or the other legions. Just another fucking secret. Love it. We could help you out and give you better war gear, but nah, this is ours. Among these relics were the weapons that whispered of an age long past, tools whose powers were unmatched, each a symbol of the Dark Angel's unwavering resolve and shadowed past. The tyrannic greatsword, a weapon of immense power. The Calibanite warblade, a blade forged in the crucible of Caliban's primal wars. And the plasma repeater, an arcane fusion of heat and fury, capable of laying waste to entire battalions. The stasis shell, which when fired from a grenade launcher or missile, could halt the very passage of time itself, trapping enemies in an agonizing void of suspended animation. And the molecular acid shells, designed for the heavy bolter, which dissolved flesh and bone akin with precision that would horrify the most ruthless of warlords. These weapons were not simply tools, they were the essence of the Dark Angels, reflection of their ancient roots, their mysterious heritage, and the dark promises that bound them to the Emperor's will. Their secrets known only to a chosen few were both their blessing and a curse, a reminder that some power was too dangerous to be shared, some knowledge too perilous to be trusted. The Dark Angels wielded them in the shadows, their ancient power undiminished by time as they fought for the Imperium, bound by a duty older than the stars themselves.
So if everyone's special, then no one is.
There you go. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's cool. Like, yeah, I named a couple of the war gear options that they had, but a few more probably made it in as well. That they probably had more Volkite weaponry than other legions would probably have on standard, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's super cool. Like, just the whole thing with the stasis shell. I mean, you got a bunch of rampaging orcs coming at you, and you fire it, and they're just frozen in time, and you can just mow them all down.
Yeah. Some of that time tech even gets carried on through to 40k, which is wild that they're able to hold those secrets and that kind of technology for so long.
I mean, that speaks to who you are as a chapter. If you can even keep those secrets from the Mechanicus, who are also very secretive about their technology.
Yeah.
I just want to know how often they're beating away the Mechanicum from, trying to uncover some of these secrets.
I don't know, but I'm going to gather some Scutari and we're going to find out. Hashtag I'm not actually a Mechanicus player. Don't worry, listeners.
Just that's just stolen identity, stolen Mechanicum valor you got going on there.
Wow.
Well, I told you I was a Necron fanboy first and foremost, so I just might be a robotic skeleton underneath this mask. Who knows? If you weren't here for the last episode where I face revealed, oh well.
Is that a mechanical appropriation that you're doing over there, Gerald?
I don't know. Is it?
Mechanical appropriation. I think it is. That's it. I want to see your flesh again. Show me. Come on.
Fine.
Just wait. I fucking love the Dark Angels. It's cool that they have a couple different things that they even take from their home world as well, like the Calibanite sword. And there's a couple other ones too that, just that tradition that gets passed on from one guy to the next. While they were in a weird kind of state, Caliban technology-wise, they did have some cool and ancient tech. Holy fuck, look at that. Face reveal.
For everyone listening in, this is why you need to tune into the live show. Gerald's giving an amazing face reveal now. And I want to say, I'm disappointed. You're not Henry Cavill under there.
I tried to warn you.
No, I knew. I've seen your face outside of doing the show and stuff before.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Look at that. Look at that.
Okay.
Oh shit, right, Gerald, we're losing Patreon subscriptions. What did you do? They're dropping
you told
off
me
like
to do it now. I'm only doing what you told me to. Now you're getting mad at me for it.
Oh, man. Love it. No, it's nice. I can look into the eyes and feel connected to you on a deeper level. I'm ready to reveal some of my secrets to you now. When I was a little boy.
Moving on to formations.
I'm going to start talking to you in Morse code blinks now.
Oh, God. Too bad. Joke's on you. I can't read Morse code.
Neither can I, so we're all good.
Right. Specialist units and formations. Within the Dark Angels Legion, a multitude of ciphered orders and secretive chambers militant were woven into the very fabric of the Legion's might. These shadowed cells, each dedicated to a singular and elusive doctrine of war, harbored the most devoted and deadly warrior adepts. Only the most stalwart and singularly focused could bear the cipher of their order, entrusted with the highest honor to stand at the forefront of battle, wielding the hard-worn skills of their enigmatic disciplines in the service of the Emperor and the Legion. Among these sacred orders, the Deathwing Companions stood as the greatest exemplars of loyalty and self-sacrifice. Composed of the finest warriors and longest-serving veterans, each companion had sworn an unbreakable oath to safeguard the officers placed under their charge. Their devotion was legendary, and none was more revered than those who, having taken a death blow meant for their commander, survived to tell the tale. In recognition of their ultimate sacrifice, these indomitable warriors were granted the honor of wearing bone-white armor, a mark of their undying loyalty to the Legion. The Deathwing bore the weight of their duty with silent resolve, their selfless acts of valor symbolizing the very heart of the Dark Angel's sacred bond. So that basically just explains why the Deathwing have their bone white armor compared to the rest of the Legion. The Firewing Enigmatii cabal followed a path more shadowed still. There wore a whisper in the dark, swift and precise. Their mission was to crush the enemy's will, to extinguish their resistance before it could ignite. Operating in small, elite units, the Enigmatii were tasked with dismantling the command structure of their foes, eliminating leaders and sowing chaos with devastating precision. Their methods were silent, their strikes lethal. Equipped with the finest weapons the Legion could offer, the Enigmatii were an unseen blade moving through the shadows to achieve their goals without leaving a trace. It was they who gleaned the intelligence that turned the tide of battle. Their actions often unnoticed but always decisive. Only the most dangerous targets caught the lion's eye, and those marked by him were hunted with ruthless determination. Among the most terrifying of the Dark Angel's ranks were the Dreadwing Interrupters, a grim and relentless breed forged in the furnace of warfare. Known for their unyielding purpose, the Interrupters embody the Legion's darkest sanction, utter annihilation. When they were unleashed, nothing remained of their foes. No bodies, no ruins, no echoes of the destruction wrought. Those who fell before them were erased from history, their names unspoken, their deeds forgotten. The Interrupters took no trophies, they did not revel in victory, they simply obliterated all in their path, leaving only the cold silence of their passing. They were the final curse of the Lion, the ultimate reckoning for those who dared defy the power of the First Legion. These warriors, whether cloaked in bone-white armor of the Deathwing, the silent shadows of the Firewing, or the merciless obliteration of the Deathwing, were the Legion's finest, its most feared. They were the epitome of the Dark Angels, undying commitment to the Emperor's will, each order a thread woven into the tapestry of the Legion's storied and shadowed legacy. In battle, they were both the Tempest and the Silence, the Sword and the Shadow, the harbingers of the Lion's wrath, and the agents of his will.
Yeah, so this kind of just touches back on all the Hexagrammicon units and clarifies that there isn't much specialization outside of them. Like those are the special units, and if you're a veteran, chances are good there you don't have a veteran squad. Those veterans get shuffled off into one of these units.
Yeah, right. They're given some sort of participation trophy for taking part in some major battle or something, and then they vaporize that trophy. No trophies for us.
No, I do this for the will of the Emperor.
I'm laughing too as we're going through this as well. The chat is bumping tonight. It looks like they're going on a huge Night Lords fanboy kick.
Yeah, man. They're insufferable. Well, no, insatiable. That's what I meant.
Yeah, insatiable is.
Yeah.
Man, you guys are just gonna have to be patient and
Come on, chat. We talk about Dark Angels tonight. Dark Angels.
Can the chat even name a single Dark Angel or the fuck?
Fuzz says the Night Lords are in fact insufferable.
Yeah, there we go. So would you rather we talk the path of Divergent instead of the hero worship of Kurz? Stay on target.
Stay on target.
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit then about their Legion command hierarchy. The Dark Angels, the first Legion of the Emperor's Might, are a force shrouded in a mystique as intricate and formidable as the warriors themselves. Their command structure, layered in complexity, appears to outsiders as an enigma, an architecture of power that defies the simple gaze and quick comprehension. 3 intertwining strands of authority bind the Legion, each a thread of power woven with purpose: the wings, the chapter, and the order. To the uninitiated, these strands seem to vie for dominion over the Dark Angels, their warriors pulled in countless directions by the demands of battle. Yet to the Sons of the Lion, this system is a tapestry of unparalleled efficiency, designed to adapt and thrive amidst a storm of war. It just seems they don't like to do anything simple. They like to try and make things as overtly complicated as humanly possible. So anyone looking in from the outside just has no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's nice.
This triad of command, wing, chapter, and order is not a chaotic tangle, but a deliberate construct forged to the very foundation of the Principia Bellicosa, the ancient doctrines of war where the Dark Angels themselves helped to craft. Each level of command serves its purpose, channeling authority to the highest lords down to the warrior at the tip of the spear. Though outsiders may see a fractured hierarchy, the Dark Angels understand it as a living, breathing force that allows them to strike with the speed and precision of a lightning bolt. Where other legions may stumble with the weight of rigid control, the Dark Angels have found strength and inflexibility. Their commanders, be they from the wing, order, or chapter, exercise authority not by title alone, but by merit of their knowledge and their immediacy of the battlefield. In the heat of war, it's not the rank that determines command, but the skill and relevance of the officer to the current moment. When the need for a specialized tactic arises, it is the officers of the wing and order who take charge, their authority transcending the traditional lines of command. This natural and fluid system of leadership is what has made the Dark Angels not just a force of war, but a storm that shapes the battlefield. The power of the Dark Angels lies not only in their martial prowess, but in the ability to adapt, to evolve on the fly as the tides of war shift. Their ability to avoid the grinding attrition that bogs down so many others has made them one of the most dangerous legions to face. While other legions face victim to inflexibility, the Dark Angels move like water, always finding new ways to strike, new methods to conquer, and new paths to victory. This mastery is not born of simple organization, but of centuries of tradition, training, and a bond of trust so deep it is unspoken yet understood by all. At the heart of the structure is their primarch, Lionel Johnson, who stands as an absolute and final authority over all of things Dark Angel. His command is unchallenged, his will supreme. But the Lion is a warrior first and foremost, and his preference to lead from the front, guiding his forces in battle with his own hand. The vast legions he commands, spread across the galaxy, are left functionally autonomous. For they have earned the trust of their master. While the Lion directs his focus on the battlefield, the logistical intricacies of the Lion's operations fall to other trusted hands. The Council of Masters and Assembly of the head of the Hexagrammaton's wings stands as the first body of authority in the strategic deployment of the Legion. These masters, the veterans who have borne wellness to the most brutal conflicts, bring with them a wealth of experience that makes them invaluable in directing the Legion's war efforts. Their counsel shapes the fate of entire campaigns, their voice echoing through the chambers of strategy, debating the best use of the Legion's forces. Their position is one of immense responsibility, granted to them by the Lion's trust, allowing him to focus on the immediate needs of battle while they guide the long-term course of the Legion. Yet there is another body, quieter and more reserved, that stands ready to take command when the time is right, the conclave of the preceptors of the Hecatonistica. These warriors, equal in skill and experience, are not often seen, for they are called to action only when they are specialized knowledge is required. In times of uncertainty or crisis, the preceptors stand ready to lead, their minds sharp and their resolve unbreakable. Though they do not often take center stage, their presence is a constant, a reserve of power that can be drawn upon when the situation demands it.
Yeah, it's so cool how they have these three different they got the three different wings. They got the wings, the order, and the chapter, and how they can kind of just seamlessly shift through the power structure depending on what needs to happen in the moment. The Lion is just that master strategist, so like all of them just in return kind of get that same benefit and know what's going to be who's going to be the most beneficial at the current moment to lead.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them, as we were saying, the flexibility, for chapters that aren't set up like this. It gives them an extra little bit to play around, and, better tactics when it comes to facing certain situations.
Yeah. Yeah, and just kind of that instant switch they can achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. To us looking from the outside, it looks like just pure chaos. But if once they've been doing it for so long, yeah. Well, this layered, flexible system of command allows the Dark Angels to operate with unmatched effectiveness. They do not need to concentrate their forces in a single war zone, for their leaders are scattered across the galaxy, each ready to adapt to the situation at hand. This structure, perfected over centuries, is a reflection of their Primarch's own nature, uncompromising in his pursuit of victory, yet allowing his warriors the freedom to act with autonomy when needed. The Lion's approval of this system speaks to the deep trust in his sons, for he has not only granted them authority, but he entrusts them with the responsibility to wield it as they see fit. It is in this mythic, almost mystical balance of power that the Dark Angels thrive. They are more than a legion, they are an ever changing force, even one that moves with the shifting tides of war, ever ready to strike when the moment is right. And when the Lion returns, it will be this force, this well oiled machine of warriors, commanders, and tacticians that will stand poised to deliver a reckoning to the galaxy. Horus's first gambit may have faltered, but the Dark Angels remain, ever waiting, ever watchful, ready to unleash their terrible vengeance upon those who would dare to challenge the Imperium.
Purge in the chat says no plan survives first contact. Need to be adaptable on the battlefield. Allows them to be adaptable in the best of situations in the changing battlefield. Fuzz says earlier the command structure is very flexible and ancient, which is great for them for being a premier frontline force. Yeah, they just will adapt to whatever and come up with new ways of war and try this one. Oh, that didn't quite work. Others gets kind of solidified, turned into a wing. Yeah. Up next, we got the Lords of the Inner and Outer Circle. So we keep going deeper into these ranks, and at this point, I'm not lost because I'm the master of all lore. But for the common mortal, I'm sure you're wondering what the hell is the Lords of the Inner and Outer Circles now? Well, let me tell you. The Dark Angels, with their unique enigmatic structure, held dominion over a myriad of titles that set them apart from their fellow Space Marine legions. The Legion's officers, in keeping with their storied heritage, bore titles that reflected their authority and their intimate connection to the Legion's mysterious doctrines. In the early years of the First Legion, before the return of their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, the officers adhered to a standard pattern of identification. Yet, as the Lion's influence took root, the Legion's rank gradually embraced the varied system, one drawn from the knightly traditions of Caliban, a world steeped in myth as the Legion itself. By the time the Horus Heresy erupted in the galaxy, only the most steadfast veterans, those who had stood with the Legion since the days of Terra, Gramir, and beyond, clung to the older, simpler titles of Praetorian, Centurion, and Consul. These titles, once common across the Legiones Astartes, now seemed a distant memory, relics of a past era where the Legion's path was yet undefined by the Lion's indomitable will. Warriors of the Hexagrammaton, the Legion's sacred wings, followed the distinct system, one that marked the bearers of authority and prowess with each of their chosen wing. Across the six wings active during the outbreak of the heresy, these titles were near identical, though a few, such as Eschaton, were reserved for the most revered among them. The Eschaton was a title borne by those who had orchestrated the final annihilation of an entire Xenos race or world, marking them as living legend among their brothers. That's awesome. That's fucking sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, you wiped out a whole species. Good for you, buddy. Here's a title. Such distinctions were reserved for those who wielded the Legion's might with utmost skill and resolve, their names whispered in awe across the galaxy. In stark contrast to the structured ranks of the Hexagrammaton, the secretive orders of the Hekatonasicata were cloaked in the veil of mystery, their titles few and elusive. These orders, numbering in the hundreds, held no universal system, instead bestowing titles unique to each order's specific traditions and functions. Yet there are a few titles that echoed through the halls of every order, most notably the Preceptor, a title denoting the leader of an order, an individual who commanded the utmost respect and authority. Beneath the Preceptor stood the Seneschals, the high-ranking members tasked with overseeing the hidden chambers and sanctuaries of their enigmatic order. When these warrior priests donned the full regalia of their order and took to the battlefield in the name of the Legion, they were granted an honorary title of Cenobite. This title was not merely a mark of their standing within the Legion's hierarchy, but a symbol of their temporary supremacy within the secretive ranks of the orders. A mantle of authority that took precedence over the rank from the formal structure of the Legion. Thus, the Dark Angel ranks were woven from the threads of both ancient tradition and eternal mystery that bound them to their Primarch. From the praetors to the centurions of the days of old to the preceptors and seneschals of the secretive orders, every title now carried with it the weight of the Legion's long and shadowed history, and every warrior's place in the grand unseen war that spanned the galaxy. Cool. Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah, that's cool. Some of these extra titles they get. You know, a lot of legions kind of will like flavor their own legion and whatever, but a lot of them still kept a lot of the same stuff and maybe only flavored like a special unit they had, or maybe their chapter master got a fancy name or whatever. But this is like titles upon titles. Yikes.
I mean, titles are the whole flavoring of like the medieval knight kind of culture. I mean, seneschals in medieval times were stewards to noble houses. So, yeah, just kind of neat.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
In 40k seneschals, I believe, is like imperial knight houses. They have seneschals from the mechanicum that like labor over the machines. Yeah.
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 So, well, all the fancy titles, well, they got to have some very fancy weaponry to back all that up. So, let's talk about some forbidden arsenal of the Dark Angels. The Dark Angels Legion, forged in the fires of ancient knowledge and relentless pursuit of perfection, wielded an arsenal unmatched in its lethal complexity. Their weapons and war gear, born from the highest echelons of the technological mastery, surpassed the means of even the younger legions, drawing from a legacy of invention that reached back to the age of technology itself. Crafted in the secret manufactoria on Terra and distant worlds, these weapons were the designs of forgotten epochs, engineered to the precise specifications of the Dark Angels' forged masters, whose learned minds were as much a part of the Legion as its battle-hardened warriors. This fearsome arsenal was not only a tool of war, but a symbol of the Dark Angels' unique position within the Imperium. Their ranks were filled with weapons of unparalleled power, exotic plasma weaponry capable of incinerating the toughest of foes, volatile munitions of arcane origin that pulsed with unstable fury, and armored vehicles and voidcraft that bore the unique mark of the First Legion. These were the technologies the likes of which the Legio Custodes themselves might have wielded, and they served as an enhancement to the Dark Angels' superior martial prowess, allowing them to break through defenses and conquer enemies that might have withstood lesser foes. So that's already like a something in the Dark Angels' favor. Is like they're getting stuff that wouldn't be out of place in a Custodes army or team.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
they get all the best toys. Yet for all that advanced weaponry the Dark Angels displayed on the battlefield, their true power lay in the secret arsenal concealed within the deepest, most impenetrable vaults of the Imperium. Hidden in the shadowed recesses of Caliban and Gramire, and its countless clandestine caches spread throughout the galaxy, were weapons so potent and forbidden that their very existence was secret, known only to the highest and most trusted of the Legion. Again, secrets upon secrets. These weapons were long since prescribed by the Emperor himself, denied to all but the Dark Angels, and they were reserved for only the most dire of needs. Within these vaults, the Dark Angels stored instruments of annihilation, gene phages capable of eradicating all life across an entire planet within hours of activation, core-breaching magna munitions designed to rend a world asunder from within, and stockpiles of ancient silica virae, the nanite scourge so feared by the mechanicum of Mars that had been labeled the ultimate tech heresy. These forbidden armaments were not weapons of conquest, but of utter destruction, tools meant only for the eradication of all life, a dark and final sanction against those few enemies who warranted such total annihilation. I don't think I understand the hypocrisy in this, because like what differentiates this from like your exterminatus, your virus bomb, your las battery? Like those things destroy all life too. So
sure. Yeah. I'd imagine it's like controllability, where like to control a las fuselage and orbital bombard a planet, it's pretty controllable. You know what's happening. Where a lot of these is like you're releasing like a virus or something that like infects and spreads, and it's like once you unleash it, it becomes uncontrollable, I guess is the good way to say it, where you could stop your orbital bombardment at any moment and then maybe the planet will be fine.
Yeah, I mean, also with this silica verae, I mean, most of the things they're going to attack your kind of flesh, organic kind of things. But it sounds like these nanite scourges would affect machinery too. So could you imagine dropping that on some sort of forge world like Mars itself, and then all of a sudden, it's just eating away at all of your machinery, and then you have no planet left.
Yeah, we've talked about how the unknown legions and what may have happened to them, but they were most likely destroyed, and lots of people think it was the Space Wolves and Layman Russ that did it, but like it was definitely the Dark Angels, and they probably used some of this crazy technology, some of these ancient weapons, and like the Emperor himself is one of the few people that knows that they have this weapons. Like they're the most trusted, and they have access to all this stuff, and who better than unleash it, but only in the most extreme of circumstances do they ever actually unleash it.
Do you think Tyranid invasions from outside the galaxy is worthy of using these Dark Angel style weapons?
Yeah, but too bad a lot of them have been destroyed. Yeah,
sadly,
or lost. Yeah,
I was gonna say, well, how many people are left that would happen to know about it 10,000 years later?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So, but before let me finish out my little section here. The very existence of these weapons was a grim testament to the Legion's singular devotion to their purpose. The Dark Angels were not merely conquerors, but destroyers of worlds, wielding these forbidden tools only when the Emperor's wrath was no longer enough. For those enemies who stood in defiance of the Emperor's light, there could be no mercy, no surrender, only the final irreversible obliteration, a fate reserved for those deserving of nothing less than complete and utter extinction.
Yeah,
I mean, this
and like one thing to think too about like orbital bombardments and virus bombs and all those kind of things. Those already are like kind of a last resort. Like they don't do that very often. Like you want, like the whole point is you want to be able to, yeah. Then you do it all the time. But you want to be able to capture these planets or conquer them. You don't want to just destroy them. But also, you sometimes need the means to actually just fucking destroy them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, irreversible obliteration. Is it really obliteration if you can reverse it?
Whoever wrote this is an idiot.
Well, let me get into the last section here of the Dark Angels in our show today. It's the Legion's strength and disposition. So, Horus the War Master chose his moment to raise his banner with the precision of a master tactician, planning to divide and isolate those Space Marine legions that threatened his rebellion. His strategy was deliberate, setting the Dark Angels evermore on the move and scatter across the vast expanse of the Imperium, far from Terra and from the key battlegrounds that would decide the fate of the Imperium. Under the warmonger's unseen hand, the Dark Angels were subtly dispersed, their force sent on distant patrols and campaigns in the far reaches of the galaxy, far from those who might have called upon them when the time of reckoning arrived. A significant portion of the Legion, led by the indomitable Lionel Johnson, had been dispatched to the galactic east, beyond the reach of Terra, beyond the news of Horus's treachery and the chaos that was to unfold. Caliban and Greymare, the sacred homeworlds of the Dark Angels, soon saw a sharp decline in vital shipments, news from the front lines of the Great Crusade falling silent. This sudden isolation, masked as the unfortunate casualties of war, left the Dark Angels vulnerable, cut off from both the Emperor's light and the Legion's central command. When the first traitor's cannon fired upon Istavan III, the Dark Angels seemed cornered, their strength scattered before the darkness even began to rise. Of the Legion's full strength, almost 200,000 warriors, barely a third, around 600,000, stood with Lionel Johnson, far from the heart of the Imperium. The remaining 120,000 were scattered, deployed in small battle-hardened groups, each no more than 5,000 strong. Located along the southern and western edges of the Imperium, many of these forces were still reeling from recent victories or locked in brutal campaigns on distant worlds. Isolated and exhausted, and without the guidance of their Primarch, the Dark Angels were assumed by Horus and his allies to be no threat to his burgeoning rebellion. Their position far from central command seemed to doom them to impotence, leaving them vulnerable to the sweeping tides of the War Master's betrayal.
Yeah, we talked in the last episode about how when the Lion fell or found out about the Horus Heresy happening, it would take 8 months to kind of gather his forces back together around him because Horus just had him every which direction. He knew that if the Dark Angels got involved, like we're gonna have a crazy fight on our hands, and they weren't ready to do that fight. So he's kind of separated them, and then just even due to the Dark Angels' nature of being like, they kind of spread out like that anyways, and fleet based and were kind of doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it just really put them all over the map.
Yeah, it's crazy too to me as we're going through this too. The 30K Space Marines versus the 40K Space Marines. Talking about a small battle-hardened group of no more than 5,000 strong. That's like 5 chapters of Space Marines there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah, it just goes to show like how and why they were able to conquer the galaxy so quickly. They just had so many of these warriors where 10 of them is enough to take a planet,
So then like just this one legion is 200,000, like almost 250,000. And then so you multiply that by 20 legions, and that's a lot of Space Marines to be conquering the galaxy.
Yeah, like in today's kind of rough guess, I think that there's 1 million Space Marines. So to have 1/5 of them just in this legion is, it's wild.
Yet they were gravely mistaken. The Dark Angels were no ordinary legion. Beneath their stoic discipline, they carried an unyielding resolve and an intricate network of wings and orders that defied the grasp of Horus's schemes. Unlike other legions corrupted by the insidious influence of chaos, the Dark Angels had long resisted the poisonous lure of traitor lodges and the creeping blight of treachery. They were immune to the confusion that gripped the Imperium in the wake of Istvan III. The Dark Angels had never been fully subjected to the Imperium's oversight, and this independence from centralized control allowed them to respond swiftly, decisively, and with a brutal efficiency unmatched by their enemies. It's amazing what you can do once the red tape gets removed.
Yeah.
Their fleets, though scattered, acted with deadly autonomy. Unable to strike directly at Horus's centers of power, the Dark Angels' night praetors turned their eyes upon the outlying worlds, though they openly declared allegiance to the War Master. These planets, abandoned to their own devices, were swiftly brought to their heel. The Dark Angels were specters of retribution, their fleets descending upon the rebel worlds with ruthless precision, dismantling any semblance of resistance. Though Horus had hoped to deprive them of the opportunity to strike back, the Dark Angels turned their perceived disadvantage into a force of terror and destruction. They harried the traitors, disrupting supply lines and breaking the flow of reinforcements, while their devastating raids inflicted crippling losses upon the War Master's supporters. Their terror weapons, hidden away for such a purpose, were unleashed upon the worlds most vocal in their support of Horus, leaving nothing more behind but charred ruins and poisonous wastelands. These actions alone, though unable to halt the ever-growing momentum of the rebellion, showed the traitors' advance and sowed chaos where Horus had once expected a swift conquest. As the Imperium scrambled to form a retaliatory task force, the Dark Angels had struck across a dozen worlds far from Terra, waging war with an intensity that left the enemy reeling. Even as the Death Guard's homeworld of Barbarous was thrown into turmoil, the Dark Angels showed no hesitation, striking with brutal efficiency. They left behind scorched planets, places that would never recover, sending a clear message. Should they be unable to hold, they would destroy. Horus and his arrogance had underestimated them, and the Dark Angels refused to yield even a single inch. For the early years of the Horus Heresy, the Dark Angels fought with relentless fury. Their forces limited to their but their impact profound. As commerce raiders and saboteurs, they slashed through the traders' supply chains, cutting the throat of Horus's rebellion. Caliban and Greymere remained untouched by direct assault, yet they too were isolated, distanced from the heart of the conflict by esoteric forces and warp-bound powers that only deepened the mystery of their role. Despite their fractured state, the Dark Angels were a force not to be underestimated. They were a thorn in the side of Horus, slowing his progress just enough to allow the Imperium a brief respite. This delay brought the time necessary for the Praetorian of the Terra, Rogaldorn, to rally the remaining Loyalist forces and prepare for the coming storm. The Dark Angels, though divided, played their part, denying Horus their early victory, denying him the swift conquest he so desperately needed. In doing so, they kept the flame of resistance burning and gave the Loyalists the breathing space they needed. The Dark Angel strategy was not one of blind fury, nor one of self-destruction. Their patience, their refusal to be provoked into reckless action, allowed them to remain a potent force, waiting for the day when the Primarch would return. With the War Master's empire built on fragile foundations, the Dark Angels stood poised, ready to unleash the full fury of their wrath when Lionel Johnson called for it. Horus's first gambit had failed. Terror remained beyond their grasp, and when the time came, the Dark Angels would be there, waiting to show him the true cost of his rebellion.
Spicy.
I like that they pointed out, and this is a big thing. Like I think in the Siege of Terra is like the big thing. Horus wanted to take Terra before the Dark Angels, the Ultramarines, and the Space Wolves showed up, because he knew with all of them, especially the Dark Angels, it would have been over.
Yeah. It's so cool. The kind of he gets trapped. The Lion and the Dark Angels get trapped on the far side. Starts a whole Imperium Secundus when he thinks the light of the Emperor goes out at one point. Flicks back on after they destroy a planet, and then he just starts this vengeful crusade towards Terra, where he's hitting up Traitor Primarch's homeworlds and just destroying them where there's nothing left, using those ancient weapons, I'm assuming. And yeah, he's able to do this to a couple of Traitor Primarch worlds before, he reaches Terra before the war is over. And yeah, it's just that vengeful crusader that just goes and destroys everything.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's all I had from my notes. We got through 30 pages pretty quick. I'm actually surprised by that. Yeah, there was so much there. When I was writing this episode, I really tried to focus on the important bits of their organization and all their war gear and stuff. There's still a lot of information. So if you want, you could go check out like their Wikipedia pages or their Lexicanum, or I've been reading those Black Book Horus Heresy rule books that they came out with, and they have so much sweet information on them in there. From name characters and all that kind of stuff. So there's still more out there that we just kind of scratch the surface of the layers of their orders and all that.
Damn, Mark, you're making me want to play Horus Heresy now.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's like, fuck, you're telling me I have to start 2 armies after this whole Lionel Johnson thing? I got to do a 40K and a 30K one? Like, double downed me, you sons of bitches.
I'm definitely a 40K guy myself, but man, yeah, after doing this episode, I think, I might have to invest in a couple Dark Angels.
Yeah, if not only for their drip, as the kids say. Look at Gerald has Lionel Johnson there, right there. He's in the light. Cool. Yeah. I think my big takeaway from this episode specifically was just how they are masters of all warfare. They have all these specialized branches, but none of them are half-assed. They are all fully kitted out, fully masters, and ready to do it. Like, there's nothing stopping them. When there is a purpose that they need to fulfill, they are going to make it happen. Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we're ready for some calling guests. Purge will be first up to the stage. Give him a second to get ready, and you're live. Purge.
Hey boys. Like every time, give them a second, not even a second later, you're on stage.
You're here. Get in here. Come on.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us. It's always good to hear from you.
Welcome back, good sir.
I did find that reference about the Dark Angels and the Legion of the Damned, if you would like me to read that quick.
Yeah, lay it on me.
Please go ahead.
Go for it.
They weren't further investigation, that much is certain. Their modus operandi bears similarities to that of certain individuals we consider of extreme importance. It is not unheard of for those lost to history to appear in a state that bears little relation to their original appearance. Given post mortem auspics readings, it is clear that they have advanced telekinetic capabilities, presumably psychic in origin. Upon stasis capture, I recommend extensive questioning within a quarantine null zone performed by gifted interrogator chaplains still attired in full battle plate. Brother Amadeus of the Dark Angels, Chapter Elite First Company, the Deathwing.
Interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So that's definitely like, yeah, that's an interesting little tie-in for sure. I still kind of hold that there's no connection. Like, just because some in-universe character as Modiah Chaplin speculates,
I want to say
that.
that they're related or that they're part of the same organization. It's just more the fact that they want to know more about them. And with the way the Deathwing works, it seems like they have a counter to every single legion, with exception maybe to the Legion of the Damned. And maybe that's why there's that interest. It's like, okay, we need to capture one of these guys so we can learn how to defeat them. We know how to defeat everybody else except for these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole bag of worms to unpack for sure.
I mean, it's better than me bringing up Cruz again.
This is true. This is fucking true for sure.
I swear, when we do
Yeah.
talk about Curs and the Night Lords, and you guys get all giddy, we're gonna start just talking about other Primarchs for in that episode.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
We've already been threatened that every time we bring him up in chat, that his episode gets pushed further and further back. So at this rate, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the last Primarch we talk about.
Yeah, he might have to wait for the second comeback after the second hiatus of Lorehammer when I'm 32.
Yeah. Episode 1000, we finally got the Conrad Cruz for you guys.
Finally
Someone
made
done
it.
screwed up. We're gonna have to wait again. Nope, push it back. Keep pushing it back.
Push it back. Yeah. So, what are your kind of thoughts? I know you've been on this whole little Primarch journey with us, with Lion Part 1, Part 2, and now this. How do you feel about it all coming together?
I thought the way that you presented it was really awesome. In terms of this specific episode, I was kind of interested with the Deathwing, just because it's an entire Terminator, not squad, not chapter, company. There we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's their whole company wears Terminator armor, and we know Terminator armor is by far like the hardest armor to maintain, maybe besides a dreadnought. But even then, it was the only armor that Cull couldn't improve on. Like Cull could, regardless of how people feel about it, Cull could take everything and improve on it except for the Terminator armor. And here they have here they have an entire chapter that's wearing that Terminator armor. So just the logistics and capability for them to maintain an entire chapter in that kind of armor, something that Cull himself can't even improve on, speaks volumes of the actual entire chapter's company.
You also got to think too. There were different types of Terminator armor, in at least in 30K. You got the Cataphracti, but you also have the Tartarus Terminator armor as well, which both are different from what you see in 40K.
True, but even then, Terminator armor is not like it's wide distributed. It's still rather. It's more of a niche kind of armor, and like I said, to me, that's just the most impressive fact, that because you hear people all the time in their homebrew lore, it's like, oh, I want to have an entire company in Terminator armor. It's like, no, that's not feasible. Like
you can have 20 suits, and that's all you get.
Yeah, that's not feasible. And here's the Dark Angels, like, oh, we have an entire company devoted to Terminator armor. And like everyone's like, yep, no, that makes sense because it's the Dark Angels, so we could support that.
Yeah, like they just have all the best gear for sure. It's sweet.
And that's where I made the comment, like the blueberries are the Swiss Army knife. So as I make the Dark Angels, then the multi-tool of the 40K universe.
Well, given this episode, it seems likely.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. So do you listen to a lot of other 40K podcasts? Let me pick your brain for a second.
Podcasts,
okay if
not
you
so
do.
much. YouTube channels, I do.
Okay.
But you mentioned the guy last time, Lipton.
Luton.
Luton. Yeah.
Yeah, Luton. So it's someone that you endorse and want to have on the show, so I don't feel guilty.
You know, I fully encourage everyone to go listen to as many podcasts as possible. Like you don't have to just listen to Lorehammer. My question is kind of like, and even for those in the audience, like this is my first dabble into the Primarchs and the Legions, and like I said many times, man, it's daunting, and it's good to hear you kind of enjoyed how I broke it down. Is there anything you would change going forward? And this is for everyone listening too. Like, email me a message if there's something you think needs to be slightly tweaked in the presentation. Like, when I don't think when we talk about the Legions, I'm gonna re-go into the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. Like, that kind of makes sense, eh?
I like the way you do it just because a lot of the other YouTubers and podcasters trying to make it more comical. And it's like, I understand why you may want to make it comical, but at the end of the day, this is a very grim universe. Like, you can try to make it comical and add the memes and, all that stuff, but that doesn't change the nature of the universe we're in. And I'd rather get the true aspects of the universe as opposed to the memes that make fun of it.
Yeah, okay. I think that kind of sums up a good little question I had then. Like, yeah, like I feel like a lot of other podcasts, I don't listen to any other ones, but yeah, that's just a lot of memes nowadays, whether it's the Emperor's text to speech or add text is ridiculous. It's all just memes. And like I've said that before on this episode, like I didn't really like the Dark Angels. Like, yeah, they're cool, but I feel like I just fell prey to all the memes of them before giving them a true kind of go. You just fall into the meme hood. So good to know that you're kind of not looking for that.
Yeah, and that's where like I look at the memes and I find them funny, but I don't give them any credence. And I think a lot of people just give them way too much credence. Like, oh, it's in the meme and it's on this major site or major group or this major YouTuber or podcaster posted it. It must be legitimate lore. And it's like, no, like anything else that's memed is never like serious. So why would it be any different for 40K? But yet everyone takes it seriously in 40K.
Yeah.
I like making things as dark as humanly possible.
Yeah, like I said, like, it's a grim universe. If I wanted something
yeah.
more lighthearted, I'd be listening to some Disney podcast.
That's why we're going to start a side project called Happy Hammer.
I mean,
yes.
as long as Bathammer's part of it, then I'm all for it.
Cool. Okay, that's some good feedback. I'll kind of keep on what we're after. We are one of the biggest 40K podcasts in the world. We flip around with a couple others, but it is good to know what people are looking for. And like I said, when approaching these topics, like, what are you guys expecting of me here? Like, was now 7 hours, 8 hours of conversation good enough? Do we feel like we talked about the Dark Angels? Guess what? There's still one more episode to come next time.
I was gonna say, I think any topic you could delve into for like hours upon hours upon hours. Like, there's very few things where it's like, oh, we got like a 10-minute conversation about it and we're done. Like, it's part of it is they leave it so vague. So half of it is you taking your own personal interpretations and adding those personal interpretations into it. And what makes your podcast really good is you're in depth into the lore. So when you're adding your interpretation, it's not like you're just pulling it out of your ass. You're actually basing it on other stuff that you've read.
Okay. All right. Well,
Fantastic.
I feel like my back has been significantly padded. Thank you, Purge.
And
Yeah,
guess
you all
what?
have a
Guess
wonderful
what?
night.
Yeah, because of that, Cruz gets bumped back up to his original position. It's been reset.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah.
there we go. I'm doing
Okay,
something
don't-
right.
All right, don't ruin it in the chat in future chats now.
It's too late. I think that's going to be the ongoing gag. If we can't go down the path of indecency with the the greater good and space elves, then it's just going to have to be cruise worship.
Yeah, those are the two paths of damnation that the chat has chosen for sure. And I like it. I'm here for it. All right, cool. Thanks for calling in. We got a couple more minutes for another call-in. And yeah, I booted them without letting them say goodbye, as is tradition.
Oops.
And welcome to the stage, Jax, we'll give you a second to get ready. And yeah, hey, how's it going?
And boom, hey, you're on stage.
Hey, everybody. Curse.
And bam.
He's gone. Just like that, he came, he went, and that is the price of damnation. Poor guy. Poor
Oh.
fella.
Oh,
I don't
man.
know. Do we let him back? Somebody give me,
No,
since we're
I
doing the
think he had-
gladiators, I'm watching.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay. Jax, you blew it for yourself. You could have lore dumped all over our faces, but instead.
Yeah, he got a whopping 3 thumbs down.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
especially after Purge tried so hard to get Kurz back on topic or off topic, back in his proper spot. Now he just went and wrecked it.
Oh
so.
yeah, that
see,
instantly
you-
got it kicked back 2 spots.
Exactly. At least. Oh, man.
Man. Well, been a great episode. I loved learning about these guys and just the different layers of intricacy and just the levels and the switching between them all so fluidly. And like I said, what I learned, my takeaway is the Dark Angels are the master of all trades, not just one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think it's so cool how you can see how the other chapters, like especially like bleeding into 40K, how much they take away from like the Dark Angels being the first.
Mm-hmm. Skeleton did ask a pretty good question, and when we had Purge on, if the Dark Angels protocols match up with the other legions, which strategies could line up with the missing 2 legions?
Whew.
Some
The Dark
interesting
Angel
speculation to be
protocols
had.
matched up. Yeah, like I don't know if they necessarily match up. Like, yeah, there's kind of some loose connections, but like, the Dark Angels were doing it first. That's what I kind of just keep going back to. It's not like they were intentionally devising ways to eliminate their brothers or something like that. They just were the masters of every act of warfare, and therefore they were able to eliminate their brothers. It's not like they were pulling a Batman where he was actually trying to actively find all the Justice League's weaknesses just in case he had to beat them. It wasn't that kind of situation. It's just like, we are the best, and if we fight anyone else, they are not the best. We are, and that's how we're gonna get rid of them.
I'll rephrase this question and think maybe like which of the protocols would the other 2 legions have probably taken after? Then maybe definitely leads to speculation on what they could have done. But I don't know. It's kind of just more fun brainstorming.
And
Yeah,
I think that
yeah.
shows so much credence to just like the Battle of Caliban when it was Dark Angels versus Dark Angels, because they're just masters of siegecraft that, the planet ended up getting destroyed because of it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Cool. Well,
I had
I
some.
think we're
I-
caller now. Oh, sorry, Gerald, go for it.
I was gonna say I had one. I guess one more thing to point out is like I've had some people ask before is like why were the Dark Angels so secretive and ashamed of the Fallen when you clearly have other Space Marines that have fallen to chaos from other legions? I think this right here with like their strategies, their tactics, their war gear, and just like what just Nick mentioned with like Caliban being completely destroyed. That's what happens when Dark Angels fall. That's why they have to be so secretive. Otherwise, they risk getting censured or worse. So,
Yeah, and I feel like too, it's like it's not like this is an open and honest legion in the first place. From their origins, they are secretive. So then their biggest secret, of course, is going to be an ultra secret. Because everything about them is a secret, and they're not even telling you who their commanders are when they enter the battlefield. They're like, you got to figure that shit out on your own.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll maybe mention about that too is we talked about just how the Lion just kind of one thing after another is fighting chaos. He was born fighting chaos in the jungle. Then he went into the galaxy and fought chaos. And then the Horus Heresy happens and he fought chaos. And then it's tragic. The Emperor dies and he goes home. And fuck, would you believe it or not, there's chaos there again. And just after all that, after everything that they did, it's like, yeah, you don't want to soil their like good name. So he wipes out as much as he can, explodes the planet, and just like, we'll never speak of that again. Like, yeah, just kind of reached that breaking point.
I mean, could you imagine how angry you'd be? Your father just dies, like your true father. You go home, and then your adoptive father tries to kill you.
It's shit. Happens 9 times out of 10.
I keep thinking of this. I keep thinking of that SpongeBob meme where the fish goes, "How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?"
yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah.
No, go for it.
No, you.
Oh, I was just gonna say as we're wrapping up this episode. So this is on a Wednesday. Next Wednesday, guys, it's Christmas. So I wanted to wish you and everyone out there Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.
Yes, Merry Christmas. Lorehammer has an exclusive Merry Christmas link on Patreon. If you go to www.patreon.com/lorehammer/gift, you can send our crew a little Christmas gift. Man, if everyone listening just gave $1, you could make our Christmas fucking wild. You could give us, and you could bless all of our children with gifts of monetary value. So, yeah. Every dollar helps. We do really appreciate it. And yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone for sure.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, guys, and Happy Holidays. I mean, it really makes a world of difference to us. And honestly, I do this because I love 40K and I love getting it out there and talking with all of you. So thank you to everyone that tunes in throughout the year. Yeah, it's been awesome.
Yeah, we do have a special on Christmas Day. There's going to be a special Sanguinala episode. It's going to be fun. There's going to be some hymns in it that we're going to all sing together. There's going to be a little story of the Red Gobbo, and I won't spoil any more of it, but it's going to be a good episode, so you can look forward to that on Christmas Day. We won't let you hanging in the time that you're not working. Cool. Well, let's get to our end notes. Lorehammer Listener Lore, it's a podcast. I read homebrew lore as best to my ability as possible. But honestly, guys, I feel like I can't make the I don't know how to read joke anymore. I'm getting decent, right? Like I can probably read at 7th grade level nowadays. That's pretty good.
I mean, we blasted through 32 pages of notes for today's episode. So
yeah, our voices are all like fucking. Yeah. So go check out Lorehammer Listener Lore. It's a great podcast. If you send me a lore and you want to be on the episode, maybe we'll be able to work out a time that we can do that. But Lorehammer Listener Lore podcast, go check it out.
Absolutely. And whenever you're done listening to us, come on over to Grimlore and listen to me and Rayway talk about Warhammer Fantasy and other Grim and or Dark settings. We actually have a Grim Lorehammer crossover coming out soon-ish once I get to editing it. The
Grim Lorehammer crossover, that was a lot of fun. We just talked about the warp and the differences and the similarities. I like to always try to sum up in a sentence what I learned, and on that one I learned the warp in 40K is grand, it's big, it's not centralized, but yeah, in Warhammer Fantasy it's very personal, very close, very central. So it's very cool kind of learning the differences and the similarities between the two. So go check that out when it's available pretty quick. And I think it's going to be on both of our feeds, but you're going to find it first on Grimlore first. So if you don't find it on Lorehammer for a while, go check out Grimlore.
Yeah. Like I said, I promise I'm going to try and get that out relatively soon-ish. It just depends on a lot of things because Mark can tell you editing is hard.
It just is so time consuming, man. For every hour you edit, or every hour of recording your hour, edit for another 2 hours or whatever the fuck I'm trying to say. I'm freaking out even saying it, you know? Wow.
So.
And then if anyone out there is a big fan of the painting side of things, if you want to hop on Instagram, you can find me at black.fox.miniatures. I throw up miniatures that I've painted. Got a whole backlog I got to add on to there. But yeah, send me pictures. We can chat. Discord is amazing for that too with Lorehammer So come join us on the Discord, and we have a whole section where people throw up their minis that they're working on, and that's where I'm most active. I try to comment on just about everything that I see on there.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Cool. And the final shout outs are to our most valued Patreon members. Seriously, boys, I can't believe people donate money for this. I'm the luckiest person in the world to be able to just talk Warhammer and people throw us a couple bucks. So every dollar really does help the show continue on. And I'm happy to do 3 episodes a week. I'm not doing Airbnb season this year because Lorehammer's been very good to me. And I'm just so lucky. Everyone's making signs of the Aquila and all that kind of stuff. I honestly just feel very blessed, man. Very, very lucky to be in the position I'm in. So thank you all. So the 2 new Patreon members that we got since yesterday's recording is C. Pentridge, sure, and also Scott. So yeah, definitely go join those hollowed halls. And even if you're just giving us $2.50, just you don't care about watching the live stream or the ad-free version, just throw us $2.50. That'd be cool. Maybe just give us a one-time donation, friend. Doesn't hurt too bad.
I mean, honestly, it's like not even the price of a small McDonald's fry per month.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, I think it's the best subscription fee you'll be able to ever afford for 12 episodes of Lorehammer a month. Definitely the best one out there for sure. Cool, boys. Well, we did it. Another episode. I'm looking down the barrel of one more Dark Angels episode, but for you, this is the end of your Dark Angels journey, and I hope it did you well.
No, Mark. I think this is the start of my Dark Angels journey.
Oh, no. It's happened again. We got another plastic crack addict over there.
Oh, shit.
I got 19 more legions to go through before I make a final decision, so I can wait.
Wow. Okay, good man. I like that. Here I'm every episode like, fuck yes, this is my legion now. But Gerald's a patient man. We'll see where he lands. All right, everyone. Thanks again, and we'll see you on the next episode. Adios.